Okay. We are now live. So we should be able to, I'm just going to edit the description. So once the video starts playing, then we can start sharing that as well. Come on, move out the way. Ooh. Edit post. The settings. Facing.
So I'm seeing it now. I see it live.
Yep. I'm just changing the name to back forward. Yeah, Mom, we started already, so. Yeah, everyone can. Well, the people who are in the call right now. If you want to. Okay. All right, how do I save that? Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's. Share computer sound up to my screen. All right.
Our time?
Your time.
Okay, I'm listening.
Africa, it is your time to shine.
Okay.
Africa, it's your time.
What a revelation.
Your time.
Wow.
Africa, it is your time to
yes.
rise. God's God the Father.
Yes, Africa is rising.
Is listen to the
God
voice,
bless Africa.
Christ. Africa is your time.
The beauty,
your time.
the gold, the tanzanite, the glory of diamonds, the plains of savannah, the beautiful animals, the beautiful color, the color of our skin, the darkness of beauty and love. We are standing and rising for the glory of Jesus Christ.
Today's celebration is a historic day in our culture. A descendant of our forefathers has traced his way back all the way from Akumpo, Maroon Town in Jamaica. Because of him, many more will find their way home. Not even the oceans or geographical borders will hinder our people from finding their way home.
We really are at a point of do or die. If we do not come together this time for the sheer survival of us, then let's do it for our children, our grandchildren, and generations to come. I'm looking forward to so working with you. This is what I've come up with. This is an answer to your call. For those who thought I was just going to disappear, I'm sorry, I'm not going anywhere. The diaspora must go home. The diaspora are the missing ingredient for us to be able to build a sustainable Africa. Besides, our heads of states have spoken loud and clear. The children of Africa in the diaspora must come home. I have no doubt in my mind that we are all going to come together and say, divisions no more. The legacy of slavery, no more. The legacy of colonization, no more. No more shall we continue to be divided. No more shall we continue to have self-hate. This is our time. We're going to learn from other diaspora groups in this country, and we will stick together like super glue, because we, the beautiful, the intelligent, the sophisticated, highly adaptable, and totally indestructible children of one mother Africa, we are going to join hands and go home. We are answering the call from our African heads of states. Let's do it.
Our time?
Your time.
Okay, I'm listening.
Africa, it is your time to shine.
Okay.
Africa, it's your time.
What a revelation.
Your time.
Wow.
Africa, it is your time to
Oh, yes.
rise. God's gonna find
Yes, Africa is rising. God bless Africa.
Africa, it's your
The
time.
beauty,
Your time.
the gold, the
Africa,
tanzanite,
it is your
the glory of
time to
diamonds,
shine.
the plains of
Africa,
savannah,
it's your
the
time.
beautiful animals,
Your time.
the beautiful color,
Africa,
the
it
color
is
of our
your
skin,
time to
the
rise.
darkness of
God's
beauty
gonna
and
find
love. We're standing and rising
Rise.
for the glory of Jesus Christ.
Today's celebration is a historic day in our culture. A descendant of our forefathers has traced his way back all the way from Akumpo, Maroon Town in Jamaica. Because of him, many more will find their way home. Not even the oceans or geographical borders will hinder our people from finding their way home.
We really are at a point of do or die. If we do not come together this time for the sheer survival of us, then let's do it for our children, our grandchildren, and generations to come. I'm looking forward to so working with you This is what I've come up with. This is an answer to your call. For those who thought I was just going to disappear, I'm sorry, I'm not going anywhere. The diaspora must go home. The diaspora are the missing ingredient for us to be able to build a sustainable Africa. Besides, our heads of states have spoken loud and clear. The children of Africa in the diaspora must come home. I have no doubt in my mind that we are all going to come together and say, divisions, no more. The legacy of slavery, no more. The legacy of colonization, no more. No more shall we continue to be divided. No more shall we continue to have self-hate. This is our time. We're going to learn from other diaspora groups in this country, and we will stick together like super glue, because we, the beautiful, the intelligent, the sophisticated, highly adaptable, and totally indestructible children of one mother Africa, we are going to join hands and go home. We are answering the call from our African heads of states. Let's do it.
Our time?
Your time.
Okay, I'm listening.
Africa, it is your time to shine.
Okay.
Africa, it's your time.
What a revelation.
Your time.
Wow.
Africa, it is your time
Oh,
to
yes.
rise. God's got a fire.
Yes, Africa is rising.
Is listen to the
God
voice,
bless
voice,
Africa.
voice, voice. Africa, it's your
The
time.
beauty,
Your time.
the gold, the
Africa,
tanzanite,
it is your
the glory of
time to
diamonds,
shine.
the plains of
Africa,
savannah,
it's your
the
time.
beautiful animals,
Your time.
the beautiful color,
Africa,
the
it
color
is
of our
your
skin,
time to
the
rise.
darkness of
God's
beauty
got a
and
fire.
love. We are standing and rising
For
for the glory of Jesus Christ.
Today's celebration is a historic day in our culture. A descendant of our forefathers has traced his way back all the way from Akumpo, Maroon Town in Jamaica. Because of him, many more will find their way home. Not even the oceans or geographical borders will hinder our people from finding their way home.
We really are at a point of do or die. If we do not come together this time for the sheer survival of us, then let's do it for our children, our grandchildren, and generations to come. I'm looking forward to so working with you. This is what I've come up with. This is an answer to your call. For those who thought I was just going to disappear, I'm sorry, I'm not going anywhere. The diaspora must go home. The diaspora are the missing ingredient for us to be able to build a sustainable Africa. Besides, our heads of states have spoken loud and clear. The children of Africa in the diaspora must come home. I have no doubt in my mind that we are all going to come together and say, divisions no more. The legacy of slavery, no more. The legacy of colonization, no more. No more shall we continue to be divided. No more shall we continue to have self-hate. This is our time. We're going to learn from other diaspora groups in this country, and we will stick together like super glue, because we, the beautiful, the intelligent, the sophisticated, highly adaptable, and totally indestructible children of one mother Africa, we are going to join hands and go home. We are answering the call from our African heads of states. Let's do it.
And welcome everyone. I'm hoping that you can hear me. My name is Niata Momo, and I am the co-founder of Kente and Silk. And both Kente and Silk and Black Livity China have put on this event today, and we're so grateful to have you here. So before we get started, we just wanted you to take a look at our housekeeping rules. Here we ask you to kindly put on your cameras just so that we make this event as intimate and friendly and inviting as possible as we get into some deep discussions together as one community. We also would like you to refrain from asking questions until the specific Q&A sections. So if you can do that, that would be much appreciated. And we also want to note for you to note that if you do want to ask a question, please state your name, nationality, and location, but you also have an opportunity to remain anonymous. Just make that clear. As you can see, this webinar is being recorded, and we're also streaming live on the Facebook and on YouTube as well. So a little bit more about today's event. So this has been months in the making, and we're so grateful to all of you joining us, including our excellencies. We have both the ambassador to Barbados with us, which is a great honor to have him here. And then we also have Dr. Arikana joining us as well. So yeah, this has been months in the making, and it all started with media. Black Livity China did an article back in March about the film Joseph, which was brought to the attention of Dr. Margaret Harris, who is also from Barbados. And she got talking to us, and she absolutely loved the piece on this film and what it represented for the African diaspora in terms of unifying us. And it was a great opportunity for her to also introduce us to Dave and Marcia Wick. She also introduced us to His Excellency Ambassador Jackman as well. So it's very, very grateful for her. And her research is actually all focused on how the arts, or one part of it is how the arts can be used as a way to bridge and build connections within the African diaspora. So we're very grateful for her and all those who have made today possible and will contribute later, including yourselves. So the reason why we wanted to bring this event together really was the time is now. There's so much going on in the midst of COVID-19 and in the calamity of, well, the new world that we find ourselves in. And Africa-China relations have been at quite a low point. But we wanted to come together and bring you together with us to discuss solutions. So we're excited to see how today turns out. As I said, I am from Kente and Silk, and we are a social enterprise, and our aim is to change the status quo of Africa-China relations. We do this by various different means and with your support. Our main thing is that we really want to rebrand Africa in China. We want to use creative solutions. We want to enable more people-to-people engagement, and we also do consulting as well. For more information, do follow us with the information there, and feel free to ask me any questions later. As I said, this event is also brought to you with the help of Black Livity China. So I'm going to now pass over to Renako to tell you a little bit more about what they do. Welcome, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, greetings everyone. I hope you enjoyed the presentation at the beginning, and hopefully this is just the beginning for what we're trying to do with this and what we as a community can go on to build. So as Miata said, I am the co-founder of Black Livity China. Black Livity China started in 2018, while myself, Renako, and my co-founder were students at Peking University in Beijing. And we really focused on community and really trying to drive a sense of agency, an opportunity for us as African people and people of African descent to really have our own voices and really strive to tell our own stories. Often our stories are told by other people on our behalf, and we wanted to change the narrative and just kind of take control of things. So as you can see, we document African and Black experiences both in China and in relation to China, and this is for the benefit of our global community. If we really understand each other's experiences, we can also reflect on our own, and we can also learn about, you know, the experiences that we've had that many people won't have been able to tap into, the experience in China, and understanding China's relationship with our countries of origin is going to be increasingly important to our communities, not just in China, but elsewhere also. And so we really want to kind of navigate that relationship in a sensible and beneficial way. We're also the home of Internet Directory, which is a directory of Black businesses, organizations, charities, etc., across China, Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. And we are a very diverse team. I don't think you can see all of the flags there, but there are about 7. Our benefit is in our diversity, and that's the whole message of this event today, and also with what we try to do. So thank you for joining us, and we're looking forward to advancing the discussion. And without further ado, we'll move on to introducing today's speakers. We're very, very lucky, very blessed even, to be joined firstly by Her Excellency Dr. Arikana Chihombori-Quao. Not that she needs any introduction, but I will do my best to sum it up. As you can see, she is the founder of the African Diaspora Development Institute. You can find them at ouraddi.org, ouraddi.org. She was the permanent ambassador of the AU to the US throughout 2017 to 2018. She was awarded the Woman of Excellence Award in 2015 at the African Union Summit. Again, this is not all of her accolades at all, but this is just a snippet, and I'm sure we'll be able to find out a bit more and learn from her experiences also. And finally, she was awarded the Achievement Award by Nelson Mandela for her commitment to our causes as a people. So very grateful to be joined by her. If we just want to go to, yes, Our second speaker today is Marcia Weeks. Marcia Weeks is an acclaimed director from Jamaica originally, based in Barbados. She has a sizable catalogue of films, all based around driving that message of unity and commitment to our causes again. She is the co-founder of Praise Academy of Dance, which has toured the Caribbean, and not just the Caribbean, but also across the world. And she's really here today to kind of give us a perspective on how we can use media, and not just media, but other tools, you know, to really drive home this message and kind of build on our collective goals as a people. So very grateful to have Marcia Weeks with us today. And as well as Marcia Weeks, we also have Dave Weeks joining us today. So Dave Weeks is, as you might have guessed, the husband of Marcia Weeks. In his own right, he has his own accolades also. So he holds a BSc from the University of the West Indies. He collaborates with Marcia on the projects that we will see more about today, such as Joseph the film, and previous works that they have put out, such as Barrow, Freedom Fighter. And he is also the chairman of the board for the Praise Academy of Dance, which, as I mentioned earlier, has toured across the Caribbean and the rest of the world as well. So we're very lucky to have a diverse you know, speakers today, and looking forward to advancing this conversation. So
and I just wanted to, sorry, Renake, and I also wanted to give a warm welcome to Honourable Minister of Culture from Barbados as well, Mr. John King. We're so grateful to have you here. We're so grateful to have you all here. So without further delay, back to you, Renake. Thanks.
Indeed. So I think we can try to get everyone on screen now, because we'd like to kick off the conversation essentially. And Ambassador, do we have you with us? Ambassador Chihombori-Quao, are you with us? Can you hear us? Miata, perhaps you can spotlight.
Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Perhaps you can spotlight Ambassador for us. Okay, while you do that, let's kind of start the discussion then. We'll try and get hold of Ambassador and bring her on to kind of kick off the discussion. But until we do that, Dave and Marcia, I'd love to start with you again about the topic of unity, because that's one of the key messages that we want to drive home in the discussion today. So I guess the main question is here, why now, and why is it so important for us to focus on unity as a collective, as a people? Why do you think that's so important, and why have you kind of taken that message and ran with it with your work? I think you're muted actually. I'll try and unmute you.
Can you hear me now?
Ah, okay, we can indeed. Hello, Ambassador. Thank you so much for joining us. I don't know if you heard the earlier question, but it was just relating to unity, and I felt that it was really important for us to start with you, considering your work, considering the things that you have been doing, and the inspiration that you have given to all of us. Why, can you just tell us, I mean, a lot of people might know already, but why should we be thinking about unity in times like these as a people?
Well, actually, in times like this, particularly when it comes to COVID, we are now calling for unity of humanity in general. We're facing a common enemy that knows no race, that knows no wealth, social, economic differences. COVID-19 is an equalizer. Because we have such a common enemy, such a vicious common enemy, this time in particular is calling for humanity to come together and do what needs to be done in order to save our human race. As Black people, however, we also have another reason why we need to seriously consider taking a position, taking inventory as individuals as to why is it that we are the only race that does not stick together when it comes to issues pertaining to our Blackness, pertaining to our Africa. Living here in the United States, and those of you in China, you can see how other ethnic groups, they stick together when it comes to issues pertaining to their countries or to their countries of origin. In the United States, that's where you can say it's a perfect example of the melting pot. You ask voices of the Irish diaspora, they may be 3-4 generations removed from Ireland, but they're still very proud Irish diaspora. Their voices are loud and clear. They're still working together and contributing to the development of Ireland. As for the voices of the Chinese diaspora in the United States, loud and clear. The Indian diaspora, the Mexican diaspora, the Italian American, the German American, they're all very loud and clear. And they're all very proud of their heritage. But when you ask for the voices of Black people, you might as well go to the graveyard, like I often say. We're too busy running away from each other. For some reason, we have been so brainwashed to not even like ourselves, let alone each other. It is precisely for that reason that it is not by accident that we are the most disrespected race on earth. It's because we don't respect ourselves. We're easily manipulated. We're too busy trying to be like everybody else. At any given time, we would rather be another race and not be with us. I often joke about some Africans who are quick to tell you that they're the only Black family in their neighborhood. And they think that's a badge of honor, something to be proud of. Whereas other races, the Indians are quite happy to be living among themselves. The Italian Americans, the Chinese, they're quite happy to be living among themselves. It's only us Black people who have been so brainwashed over the centuries that the self-hate within us is so deep. Until we begin to understand that we're suffering from this affliction, that we're suffering from the legacy of slavery and the legacy of colonization, the healing that we desire in order to take our race to her rightful place on the world stage will not begin. So the onus is on us to begin to understand our history. How did we get here? How did we uniformly as a race end up at this corner of stupidity and self-hate that we're unable to plug ourselves out of it? It starts with understanding our history, the journey the Black race has been through, what we have been subjected to. It was systematic, and we are part of somebody else's agenda, somebody's agenda to see to it that we can never quite make it as a race, so we can continue to be subservient to the other race. So the conversation that is needed to begin the healing process, it starts with a conversation with the image in the mirror and beginning to say, how did I get here? And what can I do to undo the damage that has been done to me? Because it is deep.
Thank you so much. I think that is the best introduction that we could give to such a heavy topic, Ambassador. So thank you very much for that. Dave and Marcia, I really want to kind of explore from your perspective as well, based in the Caribbean and looking at your perspective too. What do you think about the question of unity and why it's so important for us to kind of collectively join together, particularly from a media perspective also?
Okay, first thing, good night to everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you for having us. Black Livity and Kente and Silk, we really thank you very much for inviting us to this auspicious forum. And Dr. Arikana, I really am honored to be in a forum with someone as yourself. I've been following you for probably over a year now, and I pretty much, maybe I've watched every video that you've put out and just soaked them in, and I've received such an education about myself and about my race through the things that you've had to say. So thank you very much, and it's an honor to be here with you. In terms of African unity, let me go back. When we won the AMA in Rwanda in 2018, we went to Rwanda, Marcia and I, with the film Barrow Freedom Fighter. We went there because we thought it was our duty. We didn't know that we would win the AMA. We believed that as Caribbean Africans, that we owed it to ourselves and to our nation, Barbados, to be represented at such a forum, being in the arts. When I saw the list of names of the participants, the other filmmakers, And I looked at my name. My name was Weeks. And I looked at the list of names and said, but this doesn't fit. My name Weeks doesn't really fit with the list of names I'm seeing, all kinds of names that I could not pronounce. And it says to me that something isn't quite right. I'm living in the Caribbean, I'm of African descent, and my name, my last name, is pretty much European. And that's the effect that the process of slavery and colonization has had on us in the Caribbean, where our identity is not framed from an African perspective, is not framed based on the color of our skin, but it's framed from a European and a North American perspective. And it's a major problem because I grew up learning all kinds of history, types of history, except African history. I grew up learning about all kinds of people. I grew up watching films about Thatcher, AFK, all kinds of leaders that we watched, and we learned American history. We learned what happened in the UK and everywhere except Africa or even the Caribbean. And that was the basis why we produced the film Barrow Freedom Fighter, because we believe that as Black people, we need to be represented on the big screen as well. We need to show the world that we have people of caliber, of class, who are world-class leaders. And that's who Barrow, Mr. Errol Walton Barrow was, our founding, or father of independence. And that film has been well accepted. It won the AMA, African Movie Academy Award for Best Diasporic Documentary. And we are very proud of that, not that it won an Oscar, but we're extremely proud that it won an AMA. And we have the AMA here in our living room on display. So the idea of African unity, why we would jump on this chance to be represented here, is because we are very passionate about the effects of colonialization on our psyche, on who we think we are and who we think we are not. If you ask a Barbadian if he's an African or where he came from, he's a Barbadian. He has nothing to do with Africa. So there's a whole lot of re-education that needs to be done to show where our true identity is, where our roots are. And I believe that that's the fundamental reason why, as a people, we are not as prosperous and productive and as industrious as I believe we can. We are extremely gifted, extremely talented Barbadians, Caribbean people, Jamaicans. We're extremely talented, extremely gifted, and we have lots of natural resources that we have at our disposal. But as far as our power and our say on the world stage is concerned, we are not there as yet. And I believe that when we start to band together as one people, as one African people, we will see a massive change in our impact and our say on the world stage.
Thanks, Dave. If I could just add, first of all, good night to everyone. And to say to the doctor, Arikana, that in writing that script for Joseph, you were such an inspiration to me. We would just put on, we would just get little clips of you and put it on. And at that time, we only had one, to be honest. And where you were talking about France, and I could remember you in a blue dress, and we would just put that on, get up in the morning, and we would just let it play and just be inspired, because here we were doing this, embarking on this project about unity. And you were talking about unity and empowering of the African race. And so it was quite an inspiration for us in writing the Joseph film. The Joseph film for me is really, it's self-discovery. I am Jamaican, Dave is Barbadian. We're in Barbados at the moment, but I was born in Jamaica. And growing up in Jamaica, although we are very cultural, but I found that anything to do with Africa was really something that, we never really, it wasn't something encouraged to talk about. It wasn't something that we were proud of, associated with Africa. And so when we went to Rwanda, and met all these filmmakers from all the different countries, it was just so amazing and just so powerful to be in a room with them and to be hearing the people Nigeria talking about how many millions of people they have to watch their films, and and us here from the Caribbean, we thought it'd be so important for us to come together as one in unity. And we came back to Barbados, and hearing it again from our Minister of Culture, John King, who is on this program, who inspired us as well, about this need for self-discovery, this need for identity as Caribbean people, this need for us to connect with Africa, the importance, even for our economy, not just culturally, but the importance of the Caribbean, the Caribbean diaspora, because sometimes we talk about the diaspora, we think of other places and not the Caribbean, but hi, we're over here, and we want to connect, and so that unity is important. We need to be able to know each other, and in doing that, we're going to be able to discover who we really are. We're going to be able to continue that path of identity, and that's really what the film Joseph was about, which is why I started off saying that it was for me, it was self-discovery, doing the film Joseph. And that's why African unity is so important to Africa and to its diaspora.
So I just think that's the perfect way to really combine the topic of media with unity, because of what you're doing, and also with the introduction that we had from Ambassador. Ambassador, I really want to ask as well on the same topic, how do we bridge that gap? How should we be focusing as a people within our various communities, within our various pockets, on that question of unity within each other? You know, we know that we have differences, we know that we have our own respective cultures, but with this question of unity, it comes with its own challenges because of those slight differences. Of course, we're more similar, but how should we really advance this question wherever we find ourselves?
That's a very interesting question, and thank you. This issue of our differences, that's also something that we were taught. When you run into a Jewish person, they don't tell you, I'm a Hasidic Jew. They say, I am Jewish. What unites us as Black people is our Blackness. We're all Africans. Let me point out, highlight the comment that was made by my brother there. When he went to, I think you said you went to Rwanda, and you were looking at the names, and your name did not look like the rest of them. I often say, everyone should be identified by their name. You must know me by my name. If you hear the name Chihombori-Quao, you're gonna know it's an African name. And then when you get into Africa, Chihombori is gonna drift you into Zimbabwe. Quao will drift you into Ghana. When you get into Zimbabwe, they will say, oh, the Chihomboris are from this part of the country. I know you by your name. Those who were taken into slavery, they lost their identity. They were given the slave master's name. So when we trace you with your name Jefferson, when we trace you with your name Washington, we can only go back to the plantation. That has got to change. My proposal on that issue is to say, we must know the children of Africa by their name. We must be able to trace you where you come from. So there's a lady here in Washington. Her organization is called African Ancestor DNA. She can do your DNA testing. She can tell you roughly which tribe in Africa you're from. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be able to know that I'm a descendant of the Bamileke people of Cameroon, that I'm a descendant of the Yoruba people in Nigeria, I'm a descendant of the Benin Kingdom. And then when you go to Benin Kingdom, you pick up your Benin Kingdom name. That is how we go back home. Because the children of Africa who are descendants of the formerly enslaved, they are still, to a great extent, tied to the plantation. We must get out of the plantation. And once we get off of the plantation, the process of healing becomes easier because now we have arrived. We know where we come from. We can sit around the coffee table with our children and say, children, let me tell you about where we come from. Let's talk about the Bamileke people. how we fought viciously the French. But before they came, we were doing feasts and the bronze and all these innovations that our people had prior to the Europeans coming to Africa. But you can only do that when you actually truly go home. So it is my hope and wish that in due course, these conversations as we continue, the children of Africa who are descendants of the formerly enslaved, that for them to truly go home, we must get you back to the tribe where you came from. And you need to get your tribal name. So when you go anywhere and you tell them your name, they know where to find you. They don't have to guess. So that's where we need to begin the process of healing. And that was part of the process of demoralizing our Black people and destroying our own personal identity. How do you begin to know what your identity is when your name is Jefferson? When your name is Smith? You are still lost. It might sound like a minor issue, but it is a very deep issue from a very deep level. And yet we have normalized it and accepted it and never questioned it. So to talk about where do we begin the healing process, we must go home. And that starts with knowing who we are and where we came from. Then also you talked about, you're from Barbados, you're from Jamaica. It would also be nice if we could all start by saying, I am an African. I'm an African who happens to be born in a place called Zimbabwe. You're an African who happens to be born in a place called Barbados, in a place called Jamaica. But first and foremost, you are, like I always like to say, a proud, beautiful, intelligent, sophisticated, highly adaptable, and totally indestructible African. That's where the conversation begins. When we get grounded from that position of being African, and we don't question our Africanness, and we know where we come from, no one can shake us from that position. So our hope is everybody understands the importance of accepting Africa as home. Because once you accept Africa as home and you take your position, the rest of the journey is going to be easy. So the conversations about coming together is no longer going to be an issue. But as long as you're looking at yourself as I'm from Barbados, and I'm from Jamaica, and I'm from the United States, and I'm from Colombia, the divisions are still there, my brothers and sisters. That's what's going to make the healing process an uphill battle. That's what's going to keep us in the valley and never make it to the mountaintop, because the crab mentality is going to keep us pulling each other down and not coming together so we can make it to the mountaintop. You are an African. Understand that. That is where the journey begins.
Ambassador, thank you so much for that. I think just to jump off of that question, I think, we're very diverse, both in terms of everyone who's tuned in today, but also in terms of as a global community. And I wanted to kind of ask a bit more on this subject of unity, identity, these kind of questions, but this time more from a continental perspective, from the perspective of Africans directly from the continent, as opposed to several generations removed, and the challenges that might be slightly different than someone who is further in the diaspora. So for example, within the community in China, the majority within the community of African descent are people directly from the continent, and the challenges with connecting with movements or issues back home might be slightly different. So in your own perspective and in your opinion, as someone who has made that journey yourself, you're currently based in the US, do you have any advice or any suggestions on the African community and African diaspora in China, on how they can remain focused on where they are, of course, but also keep that tie back home also?
Well, the connection at home is never severed. You sever it yourself. We have this tendency here in the United States. I often joke with the diaspora. You say, where are you from? Oh, I'm originally from Nigeria. And I'm saying, so if you're originally from Nigeria, where are you from now? Already we're disowning where we come from. You're African. You have never, that umbilical cord, unless you choose to cut it, It's always going to be there. As Africans in China, you are a community. You must draw your strength from within each other. The Chinese, wherever they are, whether it is in Africa and the Caribbean, they stick together. They understand that as foreigners in a foreign land, they need to band together. Their strength is in their unity. So I encourage all of you to put aside your differences in terms of where you were born. You're Black people. Come together, meet. Don't try to be something that you are not. The connection with Africa will always be there. There's nothing you can do. I look at you, I know you're African. You can run away all you want, but you're Black and you're African, and the buck stops there. So the advice is again to say, do like other ethnic groups. I'm sure you'll see it in China. If there are Mexicans there, they stick together. If you're gonna find some I suppose, I'm not sure how many other ethnic groups you can find in China. White people, they stick together in China. So as Black people, you stick together as well. We're not saying don't mix with anybody else, but we're simply saying you understand each other better as Black people, and that your strength is in your unity. When issues arise, like what happened last month, it's easier to deal with it when you are united as a race, because clearly you guys were targeted unfairly and really abused and mistreated. When you try to deal with it on your own, it is mission impossible. Understand, just like other races, there's nothing wrong with Black people sticking together just for the sake of sheer survival. It's just the law of the jungle. Others are already doing it. We're just the last ones to do it as well. So we're not saying we don't want to be inclusive. We're simply saying that's just the way it goes. We Black people must stick together. And when we stick together, it's very difficult for them to mess with us. And so those in China, please stick together as Black people and make sure that whatever issues you have, you discuss them as a group. And if you have to take the issues to the leadership, you take them to the leadership as a group. And if we have to come in as advocates, and if we have to also reach out to the African leaders, when we work together, we can deliver the results that we desire. There is no reason why any African should be mistreated in China. We have lots of Chinese in Africa who are living very well, and nobody's abusing them unless they choose to abuse the Africans themselves. So it is just simply wrong for anyone, particularly Africans, to be mistreated to the extent that they were mistreated. Together, we can have a voice and we can stop it.
Thank you very much for that, Ambassador. Marcia, this is the kind of work that you essentially do, but you use media to explore these issues. So I guess in doing so, what are the challenges that you have encountered? And also with Joseph the film, because it's been billed as the Year of Return movie, and it explores the differences with a cast from Ghana, Barbados, and Jamaica. It really explores the differences and the fact that there are no differences, essentially, the fact that we are one people. And so I wonder how you were able to, steer that into your narrative that you created, and what the impact has been. What is the impact that you've seen from doing that? You're muted. Sorry, you're muted.
So I think with what Dr. Arikana has said, I will reintroduce myself. I am Marcia Weeks. I am an African who happens to be born in Jamaica and now living in Barbados, and have been told that I'm from the Ashanti tribe, which I'm very, very proud of, actually. For years, this is one of the things that you ask about the Joseph film. And this is what one of the things the Joseph film has done for me, is to allow me to sit on this program and to smile. And when I smile, I feel confident and I feel beautiful. For years in Jamaica, I was teased about my gap in my tooth, in my teeth. And I'm being very, very personal here, because that's what the film means to me. It's, as I said, it's a journey of self-discovery. And I couldn't, it was something that bothered me as a family trait. And I went to the dentist to try to get it fixed. You know, actually a year before I started the journey of the Joseph film, my son and I went to the dentist to get it done. And when I was told all that I had to do, I kind of backed out of the whole thing. But the result, what happened when I went to Ghana, as soon as I went to Ghana, everybody was coming to me. With the crew was there, but they were all coming up to me and talking to me in this language, and I didn't know what it was about. And when I got to the president's office, someone there told me, they said, I asked them, why are people coming up to me? She said, because unless you open your mouth, we think you're Ashanti with the space in your teeth. And so for the whole of Ghana, this is what I've been told, and that is a sign of beauty, and that they are convinced I'm from the Ashanti tribe. And so I walk around very proudly with this space in my teeth, because it's part of my identity, and it's very empowering, actually. And that's what the Joseph film has done for the cast and the crew. The lead character Joseph in our story is on a journey of finding his identity. He's been told by his grandfather that he's from the Ashanti tribe. Although born in Jamaica, his father was trying to say to him, you're Jamaican, and his grandfather was like Dr. Arikana to say, you're African, you're Ashanti. And so Joseph decides that he's going on this journey to find out really who he is, and to go to Ghana. And so, you know, he goes to Ghana and finds his tribe, and you know, and creates a life in Ghana and enjoys Ghana. And the film is powerful because it is a dream of most persons in the Caribbean. There is this, even though a lot of times we sometimes would feel like we don't want to associate with Africa because of what we see in the news, there is something deep on the inside of us. Of wanting to make that connection. And that's what the film Joseph does for us, really. And so when you watch Joseph on the screen, it takes you on that journey, that internal journey of identity and self-discovery, because that is what Joseph finds in Ghana. He finds out who he really is. He finds his roots. He takes on an African name. As I got mine is Akua, A-Q-U-A. I'm still trying to pronounce it, but it's very, very powerful. And we see Joseph as, you know, going through that journey. And so for us, yes, in the initial stages, I think financially people could not, when we're trying to get some assistance, there was difficult, because here we are wanting to film in Ghana. Why can't you go and film in the US? Why don't you film somewhere else? Why do you want to film in Ghana? You know, why do you want to do, you know, why does it have to be about Africa? You know, so but it has been it was a great journey. Some challenges, mindsets, I would say, in terms of you know, getting everybody, the actors, the crew, in the right mindset as we went to Africa. But I think there were just so many positives that came out of that in terms of our identity. Our lead actor, actually, Renaka, decided to uproot and to go to Ghana to live. He found his identity, Dr. Arikana. He decided, I'm packing up. Yeah, he decided, I'm packing up and I'm going to Africa. You know, I'm going to live in Africa. That's really, and so that's one of the positives. There's so many that has happened out of this film, but he's now living in Ghana because of doing the lead in this film.
Can I jump in here? And I want to read for you the objectives that we had put in place before making this film. These objectives were written in November of 2019. And there are 6 objectives we had for the film Joseph. 1 is to repair the identity of Africans in the diaspora and serve as a tool for self-discovery. 2, to educate and change any negative mindsets held by Africans about the Caribbean. 3, assist in the eradication of negative mindsets and imagery about Africa held by the Africans of the Caribbean and the Americas. 4, attempt to bring positive spirits and strengths together to elevate Africans worldwide. 5, communicate principles of unity, reconciliation, and self-love. And 5, rekindle a desire in persons of African descent to want to know more about their roots And 6, to inspire Africans to rise above the infamy of their chains and the history of captivity, and in effect break the stereotype. So this film, Joseph, was birthed out of our personal desire to make a contribution to the African story. And as Caribbean people, we see the effects of the colonialism that has had on us as a people. And our desire is to change that, similar to the African Americans who want to change that. And similar to Africans on the continent, we all have the same goal. We all have the same objectives. The question is, how do we come together to do it? And you asked about what were some of the outcomes of the film. I was most surprised and shocked when we heard the reviews from the film. Everyone that watched this film loved the film. And I would dare say that probably 99%, let's say 95 to be safe, of the persons who came out of the movie and gave a review said they are going to Africa. They're making plans to go. They said Ghana, some said Africa. So the impact of this film has been one of those things of people wanting to see Africa, want to go to Africa, want to go to the dungeon to see where their ancestors came from. People are inspired to go to the continent and see what it's like in Africa. So I think we are on the way. The process has started. It's well underway, and I think we're on a really good footing.
Thank you so much for that, because that fits in really perfectly with the narrative that we're trying to steer and the angle that we're going down next, which is the question of agency. I mean, what you have done essentially in your career and with media, you've been able to kind of give us agency as a people to tell our own stories. Especially within our community, the African community in China, with recent events that have happened, we've seen a lot that the narrative has been controlled by people from outside of the community. We haven't been able really to take control and say, this is our experience as people of African descent, Africans in China. And Ambassador, I really wanted to kind of gear this question to you about agency and how we can really assert ourselves as African people within the diaspora. How can we make sure that we are the loudest voice when it comes to topics related to us and our own experiences, and that we really speak in our own benefit?
Well, again, first and foremost, for you to be able to speak authoritatively, you must first of all wake up. If you are still fast asleep, what are you going to be talking about? Because your mind is still in the gutter and you're still following the agenda of the colonial master. First and foremost, like my brother said, we need education. It is education about ourselves. This is not a process that's going to happen overnight. Yes, we have a significant number of people who are now awoken, but believe me, too many of us are still fast asleep. We don't even know that we are asleep. We don't even realize that we are suffering from this affliction of legacy of slavery and legacy of colonization. It is so deep-rooted among us that the few that have woken up, we have a responsibility to also continue. So the movies like the Joseph story is a big, big, big beginning in making us wake up and realize that we are on a journey that is taking us nowhere, that we are part of somebody else's agenda. How do we bring about that realization that is so much needed? To give you an example, I was talking to a young lady, and we were just talking in general about the dumb things that we do as Black people. And she said, "Oh, I'm so glad I don't have that problem." And I said, "Well, do you not have problems sometimes when you are at work or you are in a meeting and there are white people in the room? Do you not get intimidated?" She says, "Well, yeah, I get intimidated sometimes." And I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, I just don't know." And then she went on to tell me a story where she was sitting on the front row, and as soon as a white man came, she actually got up and gave the white man a seat, and she moved to the back. And I said, "Well, why did you do that?" She said, "Well, I hadn't really thought about it, but now that you're saying it, I just felt like I didn't belong on the front row." they go from minor things to big things that we don't even pay attention to. We just do them. We have normalized the abnormal things that happen around us. So is that awareness and that education that we really need to start even from the preschool level, at home, in schools, all the way to college, and every platforms, conversations, just like right here, to continue to speak our truth, to continue to allow us realize, help us realize that we have normalized the abnormal, that a lot of the things, if you look at Africa, the abuse that's being meted to the Africans as individuals, to the Africans as countries and as a continent, no other country would tolerate that. Absolutely not. But when you look at value addition of our own products, the bulk of the products coming out of Africa, they're raw materials. We are creating jobs for other countries, millions of jobs, when our own children on the continent need jobs. When we try to add value to our natural resources, the added value products are so expensive, and the duty that's put on there, it makes it difficult for us to even add value. The reason they get away with it is because we're doing it as little economies. So when Malawi doesn't play ball, Malawi, it's easy to shut down Malawi. When Central African Republic doesn't do it, it's easy to shut down Central African Republic. So we need to realize, and then we have accepted it. Nobody has ever questioned, why is it that we're still, as Malawi, we are being asked to negotiate with China. As Malawi, we are being asked to negotiate with the European Union as a bloc. As Togo, we're being asked to negotiate with the United States. There's no parity there. And yet we never question it. It's been going on for decades. Where is this lackadaisicalness? Why are we accepting these things that are so grossly wrong that wouldn't be tolerated anywhere else? My favorite one is we're still having to fight to get the remains of our ancestors who were murdered. And we have to go to court. Who does that? Can you imagine how long a British soldier's remains would last in Zimbabwe? Not even a day. Can you imagine how long the remains of a German soldier would last in Namibia? Not only would they storm into that country, they will storm in, kill thousands more just to get those remains. But in Africa, we are being made to beg for the remains of our ancestors who they murdered. Look at the artifacts. Today, I'm not talking about history. I'm talking about things that are happening today. These people will look us in the face and say, yes, we have thousands of expensive African artifacts all over European museums. Well, we took them a long time ago, but we're not giving them back. Really? You never paid for those things. This is today, folks. This is what I'm talking about. This is all-out war anywhere else, but only in Africa. They can do that. Just like what they tried to do with COVID-19. They have been stealing African intellectual property for centuries. And the minute something comes up that looks like it could be a cure for COVID, they want to take it. And before you know it, they are going to have the patent for it, put it in a capsule, and by the time they send it back to Africa, the Africans can't afford it. So the stupid things that are being done to us, the unfair trade practices, the big companies that are not paying taxes at all because they have all these tax havens, the illegal mining, the illegal logging, the illegal fishing, they are just coming to Africa and playing Africa like a football. And we know it's happening, but because we are fighting this battle as little-bitty African countries, we are not going to win. Why has it taken us so long, since 1963, when our Pan-African fathers realized that the only way for Africa to take a rightful place on the world stage is when we unite? It took us 56 years, up until 2018, when the heads of states finally agreed on the African Continental Free Trade Area, which we hope come January, it will be implemented, where Africa can then go to the world stage as one customs union. It is very difficult. It is part of the agenda, which is why when I start conversations, I always remind people, go to the Berlin Conference. understand the Berlin Conference. It wasn't a piece of history. It was a strategy designed to see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated and dominated. And that strategy is still in place today. And to the colonizers, I say, mission accomplished, because we're still suffering from those decisions that for whatever reason, we have been unable to address them. We have been unable to look at the perpetrators and say, while you may not have committed these murders, while you may not have been responsible for these policies, but you are here today as the government of Germany, as the government of France, as the government of Italy, Portugal, Britain. You have a responsibility to do what is right, what is just, and what is fair. Fix this, undo these unjust injustices, bring back the remains of our ancestors so we can give them proper burial. Give us back our artifacts. They do not belong in Europe. They belong in Africa. I'm talking basic requests that they themselves would be asking. We're simply saying, you would not tolerate this behavior in your country. Why are you allowing us? Why are you forcing us to tolerate this behavior? The insanity is infuriating, and yet that's our reality. That is our reality every day. Why can't we come together? Why can't we push back against these obvious, blatant abuses, exploitation on a daily basis with no hope of ever getting out? We have normalized it and we just accept it because the white men said it, it must be okay. And now the Chinese are coming in and they think they can also begin to colonize us as well. In Zambia, just last week, there was a video of a Chinese restaurant in Zambia. The woman had the audacity to tell a Zambian man that foreigners are not allowed here. Foreigners are not allowed here. A Chinese woman in Zambia. So we're foreigners in China and now we're foreigners in our own continent. But I have to say that situation was addressed very quickly and that restaurant was closed. We need to begin to push back. When we are abused, let's deal with the situation, hit the nail in the head, deal with it once and for all. We can no longer continue to tolerate abuse. This game is over. We are not putting up with it. We don't care who you are. When you come to Africa, you better be prepared to treat the Africans right. We simply ask that when you come to Africa, pack your suitcase chock full of humility, honor, and respect for the African. And we, on the other hand, we must also stand up tall and ready to defend our turf. And that starts with you knowing who you are and understanding the issues and also realizing that you're just as good as anybody else. And that's another big problem because we automatically feel inferior to the rest of the other races. And that's a lie we were fed into. And somehow it looks like we have undergone genetic mutation where we just pass that same sentiment from one generation to the other. No mother ever sits down to tell their children that you are inferior to other races. And yet somehow we just know it as Black people that we are inferior. So education, education, and education, and reminding our children that we've been lied to and we must undo the lies that Martin Luther King talks about when he said, one day somebody lied. And we have had many lies that we need to undo and we must speak our truth.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. We have one more question before we'll go to the question and answer in the next part, but I think this was a really good place to add in the question of our relationship as a people and as our respective nations with the global superpowers, if you like. As Africans in China, within our community, this is a conversation that we have constantly. You know, we are not all politicians. We don't all have a huge platform, but how do we on an individual basis use our individual tools, whether it's media, and Dave and Marcia, you can also weigh in on this before we go to the question and answer. What tools, how do we use the tools that we have to really make sure that these relationships that are ongoing with these powers are as beneficial as possible to our communities? Yeah, I think.
Me?
Yes, please.
Who's question? Well, again, you made a point to say, as individuals, that's where you go wrong. This time is about collaboration. Even with you in journalism, You have a bigger voice when you collaborate with your brothers and sisters. It's about collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. We are here as your elders. We are here to have your back. I can tell you for one thing, if you ever need me, just to shoot the breeze, to ask a question, we're here for you. We are leaving you in Africa that's not what it should be. I always say, united with your intelligence, you our young people, your intelligence and your energy and our wisdom, together we can build the Africa that we want. So don't ever think you're in anything alone. When you start doing it alone, already you are lost because you're not going to make it. It calls for collaboration. You begin to pull your monies together. You form your Africans in China Association. You'll be surprised how quickly you can pull your funds together and do it with integrity. And you begin to do things either for yourselves, build your own community, you build your own community center, you start taking care of yourselves and each other, but you have to collaborate. And that means the mind has got to be liberated. That you can say, I'm gonna put in my monthly 100 RMB, and I am not going to worry about what my sister, who is the treasurer, is going to do with it. But I'm going to trust that she's going to do the right thing. And when she does not do the right thing, then it's on her. But you, within yourself, commit to trusting your fellow Africans. That's where the biggest problem is. We don't trust ourselves. So I often say, do you trust yourself as an individual? Once you trust yourself, you're going to say, because this is what is ultimately best for our community, for us as Africans living in China, this is what I'm going to do. Whoever disappoints us and does not play their part, it's on them. So yes, my daughter, it's about collaborations. You have a platform, use it, but do it in collaboration with your brothers and sisters in China. And you also have lots of good Chinese friends. You can collaborate with them as well. There's nothing wrong with that. But understand that at the end of the day, your interests are better served and understood by other Africans in China. Friends are wonderful, but let's also just do like other races do. It starts with you, the Africans. It's wonderful to have friends, but it starts with you. So once again, collaborate.
Thank you. I think that's such a poignant message, because actually there are several organizations in the China sphere that are serving as, well, there's one in particular that's serving as an umbrella organization for all African communities across the country. And I think perhaps after the question and answer, we can ask people to drop the names of their organizations respectively, and we can all kind of gather, because one of the struggles that we have is that because China is so vast and the networks are so many, it can be quite hard to gather as one. But I think your message is going to go very far within our community. So thank you very much for that. Dave and Marcia, I'd just like to give you a chance to weigh in on that question before we go to the question and answer.
Okay, Dr. Arikana hit the nail head about collaboration. The film Joseph was started and completed, and many persons were surprised that we were able to pull it off. It was a collaborative work. The government of Barbados, Minister King is here to attest to that, contributed. The government of Jamaica, and also the government of Ghana. We received endorsements from each of these governments to pursue this project. Not only that, when we got to Ghana, the government of Ghana, the Ministry of Tourism, were extremely facilitative. They facilitated the crew. They allowed us to, they provided transportation. They provided some meals. They provided accommodation, sites for shooting. So there's a huge collaborative effort behind this film. And we are seeing the fruit of that collaboration. So Dr. Arikana, you are so much on the money. You are so correct that collaboration works. And that was a united effort. And we're seeing the fruit of that collaboration in the appeal of the film across wherever the film is shown. The appeal is there. So collaboration, and putting aside our personal agendas, or, you know, each of us come to the table with an agenda, with our own thing that we need met, our own goals that we want met. but we have to look at the bigger picture. So in making this film, we were very much seeing the bigger picture. Those goals, those 7 goals that we had were in the forefront of our minds, and we were going after them. And we worked assiduously to bring on board as many different agencies as we could, so that the process could be executed. It was very expensive, very, painstaking, but we got the job done. And this is Barbados, so we are very close to the main transportation. Sorry for that. And we were able to see the produce, the effects of that collaboration come to bear in the making of the film. The film was filmed in 3 countries, and believe it or not, the governments of these 3 countries, they pitched in and they offered what they could, what they had to offer, and we got the job done. So yes, collaboration worked.
And if I could just add something real quickly to that. When we were getting ready to go to Jamaica to film the first part of the movie, I just had this I would call it almost like a vision of a bridge, that it's a bridge that we were building, and Dave was we're talking about collaboration, and what I want to talk about is the unseen part or group that's working with us, and those are the ancestors, because under this bridge, I literally saw like hands were pushing up and holding up, coming out of the sea, out of the waters, holding up this bridge. So as we work together, regardless of which communities that we are in, whether it's in Africa or it is that we're here in the diaspora, or we're working with the diaspora to help Africa understand that the ancestors are cheering us on. This is their dream, that we work together. This as we were flying, going to Ghana, I imagine as I was going over the waters, then if they were alive, they would be smiling and encouraging us, because this is their dream. This is the ancestors' dream, that we work together, we come together and begin to love ourselves and find what's good about each other. Focus on those things. What do we have in common? And focus on those and let those be our strengths. And that's what we did with Joseph. Pooled our monies together. There's someone here, Maxine McLean. I don't know if she get a chance to speak, but who, when we were ready to, the whole thing was going to fall apart. And she said, no way, this is not going to happen. As a strong Black woman, she decided to put her money where her mouth is. Again, collaboration. She says, no way. She said, my father was a Garveyite, believed in Marcus Garvey's principles and bought shares in Marcus Garvey in his in the Black Star Liner. And she said, I still have the certificate for this, and there's no way this project is going to go down. And that's what we're talking about. What Dr. Arikana is saying, the elders are there. And she'll hate that I say she's an elder, but she was able to say to us, come young ones, we're going to get this job done. The film will be done. And Miss McLean did that to get us to make sure that we got the film done.
Thank you so much for that. I think this leads us in to the question and answer. There are many people already who have a lot to say. So if there are any more questions at this moment, we're asking people to send them in the chat. For now, we have the first question, which comes from Diallo Mohammed, and he asks, how can we come together, all the multiple Pan-African groups coming together and give an impact to Africa? He says that at the moment, each group is running on their way. They have their own ways of doing things. And because of the separation, they're not having a big enough impact or influence on the continent. So how can we know that it's important, we know that we must do it, but I think his question is, how do we do it?
Well, again, the biggest problem, as usual, is that you all don't trust each other. And you stay in your own little silos, and you need to ask yourselves, why aren't you trusting each other? When you call a meeting, you start fighting, and quite often, what started out as a good idea crumbles because egos begin to flare up, and all those divisions are highlighted and strengthened. That's why it really starts with the mind. When we get a better understanding and a reason as to why we are coming together, everybody must come together in the right frame of mind. We're quick to want to have these positions and leadership roles. I've seen so much of that. It's very, very sad. What could have been a very good thing, it falls apart. And that's all part of the disease that we must understand that we have. So as you all try to come together, you must always remind each other when you go to your meetings, we know this is the disease that we all suffer from. Let's leave all those differences aside. The Jews, there's only 15 million of them, but they control the world. Why? When it comes to Israel, they stick together like superglue. They may not like each other as individuals. We may not like each other. We don't have to like each other as individuals, but let's always keep Mother Africa in our minds. If we keep it simple and stay focused, and that this is not about you and I today, it's about you and I tomorrow, and you and your children and grandchildren years down the road. Let's stay focused. Let's keep Africa on our mind. And I know it's not going to be easy, but speak to it constantly. Remind everybody at the beginning of every meeting, please leave your attitudes at the door. This time is about Mother Africa. It's about what's ultimately best for us. On that note, I saw somebody flash a question to say, can we have an ADDI chapter in China?
Yeah.
Absolutely. ADDI is the African Diaspora Development Institute, which is the organization I started after leaving the office in Washington, as a bridge through which we are going to go home as a united Africa, where all the organizations come together. Through the relationships, we can open Africa for us. We can get into any country at the highest level in a manner that we make sure that those businesses that go to Africa, they will succeed. Every country that we're going to go to, we're going to go open an ADDI office, which is going to monitor all those investment projects that the diaspora are involved in, and we will report directly to the president. Now, those Chinese Africans in China, you can turn around and say, you know what? We are going to pull our funds together. Ambassador, we want to buy a gold mine. Well, guess what? I'll get you a gold mine. I will facilitate your acquisition of a gold mine. Ambassador, we want to build a hotel. I get sick and tired of traveling around the world. I'm living in their hotels. And then I go to Africa, I'm still sleeping in their hotels. I'm still giving them money. This time it's going to be different. I'd like to see you young people own hotel chains from Cape Town to Cairo. It only takes I think it's about $40 million, $40,000 for a hotel room. So a 500-bed hotel will cost you about 20 million. And you only need 5 million to get started. Can you guys not come together? You come in and say, Ambassador, through ADDI, we want to go in and open a hotel. I'll help you find the land. You can build your hotel. We'll facilitate, but first you must pull your monies together. So don't just meet to socialize and talk about nothing, which is also another problem. Go to meet with each other with a purpose. But let me stress this. It's all about economics. If you don't pull your monies together and you keep talking and you're waiting for somebody to fund you, you're wasting your time. Don't even meet. But meet and make a commitment that we're each going to put aside 100 RMBs every month. And look where you are a year from now. Look where you are 2 years from now. Now we are turning around and saying, what can we get in Africa? What can we invest in Africa? I often talk about people complaining about the Chinese getting all these contracts in Africa, the Europeans getting all these contracts in Africa. The question is, where are you as African diaspora? What have you done to try and take those contracts? If the government was to say, diaspora, you can have this contract, you can build this airport, where are your resources? But again, the brainwashed mentality is waiting for the white men to give us the funding. Well, they fund you, they own you. So it's about economic liberation. It's about pulling our funds together. So yes, I'll be more than happy to talk to you. about establishing an ADDI chapter in China where we can begin to have a conversation that we can go home in a meaningful way, not as job seekers, but as job creators. I can assure you, when we unite, no diaspora will ever need to go home looking for a job. We're going home as job creators because we can.
Thank you so much for that, Ambassador. Just going to try and summarize some questions because we have many coming in. So a common question that we're seeing is the question about leadership and our leaders and their role in selling our countries, essentially. So how can we hold our leaders to task and ask them to do a better job by us, especially in their negotiations and dealings with other major powers and other countries, essentially?
I really like that question. I had one of my girlfriends send me a message. Ambassador, did you see this? My country is doing this and my country is doing that. And they've given this contract for 600 megawatts to this foreign country. And I won't mention the name. So I listened, I let her rumble on. When she was done, I said, do you realize how much power that is? 600 megawatts? Do you know how many lives are going to be impacted by 600 megawatts? She said, yes. And I said, good. Now, let's say this particular country does not get the contract. Are you ready to go build the 600 megawatts? And then she stopped. And I said, until you are ready to put your money where your mouth is. I said, yes, we can build the 600 megawatts. A million diaspora with $1,000, that's $1 billion. We can go a long way with $1 billion. But are you ready to put in your $1,000? Or are you still going to just be a complainer and wait for somebody to give you the money to do it? We are not ready to put our money where our mouths are. I said, go tell that grandmother in the village who is now going to get power because some foreign country got the contract because you are missing in action. When you are ready to put your money where your mouth is, when you can look at the head of state and say, Mr. President, do not give the contract to this Chinese company. Do not give the contract to this European company because we have our own funding and we are ready to build that power plant. Now you have a voice. Now you are talking. And now you are in a position to complain. But until you can put your money where your mouth is, you need to shut up because development is needed. But all we do is sit in the diaspora and we complain. Complain, complain, and complain. No, it's one thing if we didn't have the expertise. Not a single expertise that is needed in Africa cannot be found in the diaspora. We have the financial resources if we just pull our financial resources together. But once again, it's that mindset that we don't trust each other, but we don't make that connection to say our failure to trust each other is keeping us from getting these contracts because we can't pull our monies together to get these contracts. So that is what ADDR is trying to address. We have a fund that's being registered. People can become shareholders of that fund. It is the fund that's now going to invest in major projects, continental projects on the continent. So yes, understand that it's not just about the heads of states should not give contract to the Chinese and the Europeans. The question is, if they don't give them the contracts, are you ready to go take the contract? Yeah. Have you put your money together to go take the contract? So until you're ready to do that, shut up. Let's be practical here. Let's keep it simple and real. So let's stop being complainers and noisemakers and no action. If you're going to complain, then take some action, do something about it. The next airport, Mr. President, we are pulling our monies together. We are building the next airport in Zimbabwe. We are building the next airport in Kenya. We are building the next airport in Nigeria because you have the money. And you know what? You can pull the money together. You have the money. All you got to do is trust each other. And it goes back to the mind. So let's not be stupid and just complain about issues without a solution. Let's wake up.
Thank you very much for that, Ambassador. Marcia and Dave, there's a question that has come in about how Caribbean people can really participate in this conversation, essentially. How can they also get involved in the opportunities that come with it and also contribute to the work?
Well, I mean, I'm just here sitting and thinking about the whole thing of the mistrust and so on, and how much we go. That's what we live here, even among us in the diaspora in the Caribbean. It is a problem here where we have not been pooling our resources and working together because of some of those same issues. And I had given the example earlier where we had someone who said to us, listen, this is happening, you're doing the film and there's a problem. I'm going to step in, not a government, but a person. As the doctor was saying, put your money where your mouth is, And so this is a call for Caribbean people, because we do have resources. If we could pull together, there's so many things that we can do. We sit here and we watch what is happening in China to the Africans, and we watch so many other issues that's happening. And so I want to tonight send out a call to us as Caribbean people to come together to say, what is it that we can do? Some of us, we're just in love with the idea of Africa. We never go, we never even try to even go there to see what it's like, to change our mindsets about what the media has shown us. And so to those of us from the Caribbean, I'm saying, let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's begin to come together and to really contribute to what is happening to our African brothers and sisters, and vice versa. Let's begin to work together. I know our government in Barbados right now, before we went into the COVID situation, we were looking at really connecting with Ghana, because we are really practically about 4.5 hours away from Ghana. From the nearest point from Africa to us is Ghana, and we're by plane we're about 4.5 to 5 hours. However, this is very, very serious, where it was only, I think, probably up to a year before I started doing the film that I was fully convinced that it wasn't, all these miles and miles. I mean, impossible. This Africa is so far away. Yes. We have been so brainwashed. It's unbelievable. We're very educated people in the Caribbean. But, just a couple months ago, I'm speaking to someone and trying to convince them it is only about 4.5 to 5 hours by plane. And they would not believe me, because they believe that it's gonna, it's so far. At the moment, it takes us 2 days to get there, because we have to stop off in London. We have to always go through the colonizers. Either we go through England or we go through the US. But we have to, we have to pass through some colonizer for them to give us permission. We have to get visas and all these kind of things to get to their country, and then to get to Africa. So these are some of the things I think within our Caribbean, in the Caribbean region, some of our governments who are trying to change that, because we can begin to trade with Africa, where we can begin to, in terms of our economic development. And look at what's happening with us with COVID right now. I believe we might, in the Caribbean, might be seeing some problems with food security. Is there a possibility that we can begin to do some export and trade with Ghana, that's so close to us? Here in Barbados, instead of we had slaves coming over, because this was so close. We could probably now have food, all kinds of trade happening. And so I'm making an appeal to our Caribbean brothers and sisters to recognize that we're really not that far, and that we whatever it is that we have, we can begin to pool our resources together and really reach out to Africa, and begin to start to collaborate and to work together.
Thank you so much for that. We're just going to allow someone now because we really want to encourage interaction with this. So we're just going to welcome a question from Geneva, who is going to actually voice her question. So I'll just spotlight you.
Hello. I hope you can hear me. So first of all, thank you so much for this event. I am currently in the UK and it's 3:20 a.m. and I wouldn't have missed it for anything in the world. So thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Dave and Marcia. And thank you, Runako. You're my sister and I'm always backing you. Whatever you do, you just let me know. I'm right behind you. So my name is Geneva Debi. And I am an African from Mali and Senegal, and I happen to be born in Italy. I have visited Mali and Senegal 2 times in my life. Last time was in December, and I also went to Ghana for the year of return. And the more I grow and the more I read and the more I learn, I really find that my place is on the continent. And I really hope that I will be able to move there soon. Obviously, with this coronavirus crisis, it's not going to be as easy, but I will still try and do my best to. I don't really have a question. It's more of a comment, and I would just like to put it out there and see who resonates with it. I'm very passionate about education and using African languages. When it comes to education, obviously, in many African countries, we still use French, Portuguese, English. We have a very neo-colonial system. We learn more about European history than we do about African history. So what I would love to do when I get to the continent would be to research our history and make it accessible in our languages, because most people don't speak European languages. And I believe that as diaspora, we can be too lazy sometimes. Like we rely on English and French because, you know, we were born and raised in Europe or whatever. But I really think we should make the effort to learn and promote African languages, because there's so much history, culture, wisdom, and philosophy in our languages. When you take a word and you break it down, you find so much. And we always complain about, yeah, our history has been lost, but it's there. We just don't know how to access it. So whoever is interested in building a new system, a decolonized system, an African system to educate ourselves and the people on the continent and the people all over the diaspora, you can, you know, get in touch with me. We'll try and sort out something. But yeah, I just wanted to put it out there and see if we can start creating like a network, and hopefully not only in theory, but like physically build schools that are made to decolonize African people, regardless of where we are and regardless of whether we are on the continent or in the diaspora. So yeah, that was my comment. And again, thank you so much for everything that you've done. It's been very inspiring, and this motivates me more and more to do what I want to do in the future on the continent.
Thank you so much for that, Geneva. We will now just take one more question before we move on to the next part, which is all about solutions. And that is exactly what we've been speaking mainly about anyway. So the next question that we were going to take was about division between Francophone Africans and Anglophone Africans, and what we can really do about that language barrier. I think Geneva just touched on it, but also it was another question that someone else just submitted. So, Ambassador, I don't know if you have any thoughts about language divides and how that in particular can be destroyed once and for all.
Well, again, allow me to go back to the Berlin Conference. The reason they divided Africa up in the manner that they did, and also assigned those new countries in the manner that they did, it was done intentionally to see to it that tribes that were very large, who were one homogeneous kingdom, they were broken up into 3-4 different countries, sometimes more, and given to different colonizers, such that give it 2 or 3 generations, these people won't even realize they were once one. I often use an example of saying, picture yourself driving from Zambia. You're speaking English, and pretty soon you're in DRC, you're speaking French. Go a little west, you are now in Cameroon. You're speaking in Southern Cameroon, you're speaking English. And keep driving on. Before you go there, go straight west. You are now in Equatorial Guinea. You're speaking Spanish. And from there, Cameroon, Southern Cameroon, it's English. And then go up Northern Cameroon, you are now speaking French. And before you know it, you're now in Nigeria, you're speaking English. It was all done by design to make sure that these powerful kingdoms who were once the same people, give them a different language, they will not know each other. It is, again, by design, back to 1884 to 1885, language was used as an instrument of dividing us. It is also precisely for that reason that we don't even trade with each other, even as neighbors. So it's part of the strategy to divide us. And it has been very effective when it comes to the Africans. What I do say, however, to young people now, we know better. We're all Africans. You may speak a different language, but at the end of the day, we are one. And that's, again, a message that we need to hammer home. We are Africans, regardless of what language we speak. Let's unite. Let's not continue to perpetuate the desires of the colonial master when they divided us up. Let's make sure that Berlin Conference is dead, and we're the only ones who can kill the Berlin Conference. I have seen it where some of the French speaking people here in the United States, they feel they're better than the English speaking. I even been saddened by some when they refer to going home, they're referring to going to France. It's all part of the colonization. And so we also have other languages, even within our countries. The languages within our countries, they don't divide us to the same extent that the Spanish speaking, the French speaking, the English speaking, the Portuguese speaking. There's just no interaction there at all. If you're a former Portuguese colony, all you know of is to go to Portugal. And everything that you do, you go to Portugal. If you were a German colony, if you were Italian, if you're British or French. And so it was all done intentionally. So we just need to be awake and be realistic about it and understand that as long as we continue to dislike each other based on these divisions that were imposed upon us, we're furthering the colonial master's agenda. And that starts with understanding and education and realizing that when it's all said and done, we're all Africans. We may speak different languages, but we are all Africans and we need to stick together because we are in this boat, which is the Titanic. If we do not get out and work together and fix these holes in the Titanic, we're all going down. So it's about waking up, understanding our history and understanding ourselves.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. This kind of leads us on really well to the last section of the webinar, which is all about solutions and all about the next steps. We have really discussed and kind of torn apart the issues that we have, but next we kind of want to talk about what we do next. How do we move forward as a people? And we've already kind of done that, thanks to you. But I think the next question that I wanted to touch on was priorities. As a people, I know we've spoken about unity. Is there anything else that both yourself, Dave, and Marcia as well, you describe as a priority in terms of our next step, immediate next step? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I guess we'll defer to the doctor. Or do you want us to go ahead?
Yeah, I think if the question was clear, then you can go ahead, and then we can also.
Okay. In terms of solutions, the problems of us Africans have been circulating in my brain, in my mind for a long time. And especially during this COVID period, when I guess people had time, I've seen so many videos of atrocities that are happening and that have happened. And I've come to the conclusion that I don't know why but it seems as though wherever we are, no matter what country it is, whether it's the Caribbean, whether it's in China, whether it's in England, the USA, that once you're Black, that you are taken advantage of. That people just don't like us for whatever reason. What I've also learned in just period is that I've also received several videos, and over the time, I've learned, and let me use the word learned, I've learned about the amazing talents, the amazing gifts of Africans. I've learned about civilizations that were established long before European civilizations. I've learned about the inclusion of Africa in the Bible. Africa is all over the Bible. I mean, when I look at it, I'm seeing that Africa is prominent in a positive way. And I ask myself, if Africa is such a positive, has such positive energies and all the wealth, and I mean, some of the most beautiful sites are in Africa. The tourism that is possible in Africa is absolutely amazing. If this is the case, and there's so much positive things about Africa, why is it that we are treated this way? And in terms of unity, that's one of the main reasons why I think we need to unite, because no one is fighting for us, so we have to fight for ourselves in order to survive. And in terms of solutions, I think that where we need to start is understanding. Dr. Arikana spoke about education. I think that the main priority is to get into the minds of us Africans. My mind has certainly been changed over time, and I'm converted. It took some time, but it happened. And I'm thinking that if we can accelerate the rate of dissemination of information, over this period, I've seen so many wonderful images and clips and learned so much about what Africans have done. And I think that's part of the problem why we see ourselves as underdogs. We see ourselves as inferior because 90% of us don't know the virtues of Africa. 90% of us don't know what Africa has done, what Africa can do, the resources, the wealth. A lot of us don't know the intellectual gifts and abilities of Africans. There's so many things that are being done by Africans, but the other groups have purposely hidden these things from us and refused to bring them into mainstream media. So the average child in Barbados have no clue about Dr. Arikana. They don't know, and the average person does not know the intelligence and the wonderful talent that we as Africans have. They assume that we are built to be servants. They assume we are built to provide servitude. And I think that the first thing that we ought to do is to embark on a program of education. I think our radio stations, our newspapers, I think that we need to, all of our radio stations should have a program geared toward disseminating positive messages about Africans. PSAs, public service announcements should be done that smartly and succinctly disseminate positive messages of Africans and who they are. One thing with the Barrow film that we did, when we did the Barrow film, one of the purposes of the Barrow film was to bring to the fore the virtues of Mr. Errol Walton Barrow, who he was, what kind of leader he was. And what came out of that film, we've shown that film in Cuba, we've showed it in England, we've showed it, where is Marcia? In Brazil, all over the Caribbean, the USA, and everywhere we go, people are saying, we didn't know this man, we didn't know this there was a leader of this caliber in the Caribbean. We didn't know. And the issue is that people don't know, and if you don't know, you cannot respond in a positive way. So I think that one of the first things that we need to do is begin to disseminate, to reverse the messages that we are hearing. We, as Dr. Arikana said, the mainstream media is not going to do it for us because that's not in their interest. So we have to band together and we have to unite again, collaborate, and find a way to get positive messages out to the average Black person, wherever they live, wherever they are, so that we change the diet of the messages they hear. And I think once that process has started and their minds are started to change, then we can see that collaboration occurring. Then we can see the pooling of monies coming together. We can see the trusting of each other, and we can see a building of that bridge that we spoke about. So I think the first thing is that's media. I think the media, if you study it, film, if you look at the film industry, America, we know about American culture through films. and through their music. So media is vital. The culture, the arts is one of the quickest way of disseminating information. So if we can find a way of using the music and the DJs and the bloggers and those artistic persons to get the information out there of the wonderful work of Africa and Africans, I think that's maybe one of the steps in the right direction.
Yes, I just want to, just a quick, I know we're short on time, but just to quickly add something to that. I think of the great Bob Marley, an African from Jamaica, and making sure I say that right, and who, you know, through his music has really, you know, rallied us together, even in his death. I mean, he died so many years ago, and we're still saying emancipate yourself from mental slavery, which is really what we're talking about here, part of what we're talking about here, identity. And that came through music. And so as artists, I think one of the, you know, we talk about unity, but one of the things that I often say, okay, so we come together, but what are we coming together to do? And I want to say, to make an appeal to us artists, the artists who are listening, that it is so important. Africa needs us. We need our talent. We knew about Black Livity in China knew about us because of our art. And so if we knew about because of the Joseph film. So we need to keep creating art. And keep putting it out there, keep exchanging. And I think that is one of the ways that we can start trading the Caribbean with the rest of Africa, with the Black Americans, wherever we are, that we trade. And we're not just doing it for cultural exchange. Is great. Dave talked a lot about that, about knowing each other, get to know about each other's culture, but also for economic empowerment. I think that is what will sustain that, you know, that exchange when we can make a livelihood from it. When I could come to Ghana and I could sell my film, and a Ghanaian actor can come to Barbados, enjoy Barbados, get to know Barbados, but then, you know, in terms of the economics of it, it makes sense for him. So I think that our unity with a purpose is very, very important. Unity for cultural exchange and getting to know one another will help with our identity, but it's important that we really work towards economic empowerment. And in some of these cases, I think in some of these countries, the governments within the countries can help to assist with that, because there's some, in terms of deals, trade deals, and all these different things that have to be worked out. We need our governments to come on board. So we need our leaders for them to be emancipated, you know, and to stop figuring that everything that we need to do everything, you know, with our colonizers. We need to recognize that Africa is a rich country. Very, very wealthy, with all the minerals and all the things, all that's there. And it's important for us, especially, I'm speaking to the Caribbean, that we begin to turn our eyes towards Africa. I think that that's the future for us. You know, in the arts, in agriculture, in all these different ways, you know, for economic empowerment, which I think after COVID, we're going to face some tough times, I think, in the Caribbean. And I think we need to begin to realize that Africa is right there. We are part of them and they are part of us. We don't need to always be going to our colonizers.
Can I give a specific example? I just want to add one thing. Right, an example. For example, in Barbados, we have had solar, we've been using solar energy to heat our water for decades. We've had almost every house in Barbados uses solar energy for hot water. And we have several solar water heater companies in Barbados. And the temperature, the climate in Barbados is very much similar in Africa. Can you imagine if there was trade between Barbados and Africa, and that knowledge and that technology could be used and exported to Africa, and there could be trade, and we could have companies in Africa? It would be a win-win. It would be a win-win situation. But somehow or the other, that ingenuity has not left the island and has not been able to be exported outside of Barbados. I don't know the reasons why. I'm not that inclined, but there's so much that can be done if we could trade and exchange ideas and exchange technologies, because there's such a huge market in Africa that it would be a great thing for Barbados, for our economy, and it would be a great thing for Africa as well.
Thank you so much for that, Dave. And Barbados, I would just love to come to you here and really linking, really linking what Dave and Marcia has already said. Have you, in your, years, decades of really doing this work and committing yourself to this work, are there any examples of this working? We often talk about the ways that we have to improve, but have you seen anything that is a really strong sign that we are going in the right direction?
Not really. When you look at what's getting ready to happen to the continent with the African Continental Free Trade Area, there are major continental projects that are going to be available, contracts that are going to be filled. Whether we diaspora are in place to fill those contracts or not, the continent is going to be developed. The high-speed railway from Cape Town to Cairo is going to be built. The question is by who? I have seen many diaspora in healthcare go to Africa and spread out in so many different places, all of them doing little bitty things. Can you imagine all these decades of healthcare workers going to Africa? Had they been doing it as a unified force, how many hospitals we could have built by now? But everybody is doing their own little thing. And I have not seen where diaspora have collaborated effectively. The Ethiopians are trying. I believe they started an Ethiopian bond, diaspora bond. And that's the only group I can think of that's really trying. But even that, it's not to the extent that you would expect it to be. So really, it's really time for each and every one of us to revisit our thinking, which is why really I created ADDI to be the platform that where we can all come together. Through this fund, you don't have to ever step foot in Africa, but you can benefit from what is going on in Africa if you just become a shareholder. When we can all pull our funds together and then build that Cape to Cairo highway and build the next airport, the next resort community, the next power plant. The heads of states are ready to give us the first right of refusal if we are organized. The only missing link for Africa's development are its children in the diaspora. You have to understand that the brain drain has pulled a lot of the capacity that Africa needs out of Africa. If the truth be told, there's not a single African country that has the capacity to build a railway line. So when Chinese come in and build the railway line, we complain that they're getting the contracts. Well, you diaspora could equally have gotten that contract if you were organized. The question is, how do the heads of states reach out to you? Because we are scattered all over the place. Now, the onus is on us to unite. And I keep coming back to the United States because it is the perfect melting pot where you see what other diaspora organizations have done by simply coming together and identifying a solution in their countries of origin and going after a solution to that particular problem. So we need to come together. ADDI is the answer. I urge everyone to go to our ADDI or addi.org. It doesn't matter where you live, you can register. Now picture a situation. We now are sitting at 1 million people who are registered. And now there's a contract, a tender for an airport to be built. And they need, let's say for discussion purposes, I don't know how much it costs to build an airport. Let's say they need 100 million. It's easy to message 1 million people and say, we have a special purpose vehicle that is created for the building of this particular airport, the building and the running of that airport. Here is how much it costs. The first people to contribute this much money, they're going to be the owners of this project. We run with it. We can do that from one project to the next, but you got to be prepared with your money, and the messaging is where it begins. So we are looking to have at least 1 million people, diaspora, registered with ADDI in the next 12 months, so we can begin to really say, we're now moving to the next level. With 1 million people, there's so much that can be done. A project comes up, it's only calling for 10 million. We can get that 10 million just like that. $100 everybody. When we get to 10 million, that particular investment is closed. Those who are in are in. A gold mine comes up, oh, we only need $1 million. Those who are, we float it out to the 1 million people. Those who are ready to, the first ones to put in that $1 million, we close that particular investment product, they are in. So it starts by having the numbers. So when you say, what is the solution? Right now, go to our addi.org and sign up. Stand up and be counted. You can sign up as an individual. You can sign up as a company. We want to be able to reach you when we start rolling out these projects. As I speak today, we're supposed to be in Zambia, where the president had invited us to basically say, Ambassador, bring the diaspora. We want to give the diaspora the first right of refusal of all the contracts in Zambia. They actually were supposed to have been in the US in April, and they would have brought all the low-hanging fruits, investment opportunities. They were supposed to travel around the United States, and they can go wherever the diaspora are ready to receive them. I have 5 other countries that are already standing in line. They want us to bring ADDI to their countries, and that's how we come together. So ADDI is that bridge that has been long awaited for. That's how we are going to go home as a united front to truly build the Africa that we want. And so I'm urging all of you to go to our addi.org and sign up. And for you in Chinese, you Africans in China, I also urge you to establish your ADDI chapter. We'll be more than happy to work with you so we can join hands and undergo this journey together. Also on the issue of our history, I've also written a book which is called Africa 101. I urge you to go to africa101.org and reserve your copy. Africa 101 and reserve your copy. The book is basically about all the issues I've been talking about. I finally decided that there's only so much talking I could do. There are only so many videos I could put out, but that we needed also to begin the education in our schools and teaching our children our history. So this book is written in a very simple manner. It starts with slavery, colonization, independence, the pact for the continuation of colonization, the attempts at unity during OAU, the games that they have played with us before independence, the games that they played with us after independence, the games they continue to play with us in order to keep us chasing our tails, all the way to today and way forward. So it's a very simple book that you can say, if you have any questions about way forward and you want to understand why you should change your mindset, I hope by the time you finish reading that book, that you will have a better understanding and you emerge as a more awoke African, as an African who understands where we have been, and an African who's clear and clearly understands that the direction in which we are going as a race is the wrong direction. Where we need to be is in the opposite direction. And let me also repeat one thing, that we must also realize that at every step, we're now being used as instruments of our own self-destruction. Let's resist the temptation to be told you're better than your brothers, that you're better than so-and-so. No, we are all equal under God. And as Black people, we must say, Africa first, just like they say, whatever their countries are first. Africa first, and we refuse to be used as instruments of our own self-destruction. So that is the way forward. And anything else I need to tell you about way forward? The rest of the information is on the website. So I urge all of you to visit the website and let's continue the conversation.
Ambassador, a question has just come in about the website and membership. Someone has asked, are they able to sign up individually and as a business?
Absolutely. I'm trying to charge my phone. It's getting ready to die on me.
Oh, no problem.
Let me just, yes, they can, you can sign up. You can sign up individually. This phone is, okay. You can sign up as an individual and you can also sign up as a company. And while you're there, we have various projects that we hope you can take some time and contribute to. We're challenging every African diaspora and friend of Africa to donate $1 a day for Africa. We have women projects and youth projects that we want to embark on in Africa. We have legacy project where we would like to see our children get a round trip ticket to Africa when they're rising junior and senior in college. We have to really just be very realistic. Our children cannot grow up knowing Africa through osmosis. We have to take our children to Africa. So the legacy project, the women empowerment project, the youth empowerment project, plus of course the operations fund for ADDI, and of course we got the COVID-19 supplies as well. So take your pick, whatever you want to donate, whatever program you want to donate. This is where the conversation begins, and you give because it's the right thing to do. We choose not to ask anybody to contribute X amount of money. Contribute what you can, and that is the spirit we're trying to cultivate among us. You don't have to say, well, I'm only going to give $5. Well, $5 is what you can afford. Then that's fine too. But we want you to realize if you have it, you need to give. Some of you might ask how the youth program and the women program is going to work. We're going to be giving no interest loans to the less fortunate, anywhere from $250 to $1,000. And one woman asked me, said, but Ambassador, what could somebody do with the $250 or to $1,000? I said, well, this is what can happen in Africa. You take a woman who can sew, but she doesn't have a sewing machine. You give her $500. She'll take $300 and buy a sewing machine. The remaining $200, she'll buy the thread and the fabric to get started on her business. And you come back and see her 6 months from now, she will be running a thriving sewing business. You take a young man who needs $500 to buy an umbrella, a table, and a chair, and his first set of SIM cards. And before you know it, he's now in the business selling SIM cards. Come back and see him in 6 months. He's in a very different place. You take a young woman who only needs funds to buy good seeds to start a good garden right outside the city. Before you know it, she's supplying the local supermarket. Africans are very creative. All they need is just a little bit of help, and you'll be amazed what they can do with that little bit. So we want people to understand, if you can give, please give, because it is the right thing to do. To whom much is given, much is expected. Thank you.
Ambassador, thank you once again. I think on this topic, and kind of on the topic of how we can really pool our efforts together, we also want to look at the angle of media. And Dave and Marcia, I wanted to ask you, did you have any thoughts on how these efforts can be combined? Because we've spoken about the importance of unity and, uniting our efforts. So in terms of ADDI and the work that they are doing, and Her Excellency also, how do you see media playing a part and in the same mission, essentially?
Oh boy, great question. Well, I'm thinking about the Joseph film, and when Dave said something earlier, that when they went to the cinema, they all, a lot of people wanted to go to Ghana, wanted to go to Africa. And one of the ways I see that the Joseph film in particular, being part of the solution, is we had a travel agency, a couple travel agency, who said to us, listen, there's so many people who have never been to Africa and they would like to see Africa. Let's partner together. Yeah, let's work together. And so they will go to the cinema, they see the film, and then we say to them, okay, come with us, and we will take you to all the locations in the film. And that was something that was going very well, actually. We had a travel agency coming out of the US and one from Barbados, and where they were now working together to be part. We're part of the solution, as you said. We're not going to just talk about unity and talk about coming together, but really for economic empowerment. And so this travel agency was ready to go. We're speaking with the Ministry of Tourism in Ghana to get that working, where those who came to see the film wanted to go to Africa, we say, okay, go to this particular travel agency. They're planning a trip to go, to see Africa. And what that does, it helps us with our image of ourselves, because here we are on this side, and as we started out by saying, we don't know much about where we're from. So that helps as well. We've also, we're also working with the Ministry of Education in Ghana, and also the Ministry of Tourism, the youth section of it, where we're doing exchanges. So the students are, this was before COVID, going to the cinema in Ghana, seeing the film. They had to do an essay, and the children in Barbados as well. They're doing an essay. The children in Jamaica, and the top three, they get a chance to win a ticket to visit, to do some kind of exchange. And we really were very excited about that, because it wasn't just a film now, but we were going into education and changing mindsets. And for us, we really wanted to involve the young people. We wanted the children involved in the process, because a lot of the damage, it's being done there. Where you would say to a child in the Caribbean, do you want to go to Africa versus New York? They're going to say New York. So here we have them trying to write essays, trying to get a ticket for them and their parents to go to Africa. We're hoping that with when COVID is over, that we'll be able to get back on some of these projects, because we think that these things are very, very important, where arts and media, arts and education, where we're coming together to begin to change mindsets and to be able to move the whole idea of us coming together, knowing more of each other, to move it along.
If I can add to that, one of my dreams for the film, Joseph, is that every African gets to see the film. Miati, you've seen the film. Renako, you've seen the film. And several persons here have seen the film. And I think you can attest to the value and the virtues of the film as a solution provider. What people are saying about the film, that they were surprised to see how beautiful Ghana was portrayed. They were surprised to see how majestic Africa is. They were also touched and impacted deeply by the experience at Elmina. Is it Elmina? Cape Coast yeah. Castle. They were very touched, and it gave them a sense of, that's what happened to me. And it's a very educational tool. It's also a very inspirational tool. And I think this film answers your question as being part of the solution. And as a cultural and as an artistic tool, my love that once the financial aspect of it is all tied up, we would love that this film is disseminated across Africa, across the Caribbean, across the African diaspora in the United States and in the UK, in China. We would love that this film be in universities, part of the school curriculum for African American schools, UK schools, in the school system. What we do with our film is that we bring the children from the school system in Barbados to the cinema to watch the film. That's what we did here, and the impact was tremendous. So what I would like is that as a piece of art that is very purposeful, it's written purposefully, and the responses and the evidence is saying that it has achieved the objectives. I believe that this film can be a vital tool to go alongside the work that Dr. Arikana is doing. It will stir people mentally and challenge you mentally to change or to look at your positioning regarding Africa. It tries to paint a different picture of Africa other than what we see in mainstream media. The whole concept of collaboration in medicine is born out in the film. Correct. Where Africa is known for their herbal medicines. But what the mainstream media has taught us is that it's all evil. So when we think of herbal medicines and Africa, we think of witch doctors and we think of everything evil. And we've come to learn that that's not true. And the film shows that there's a collaboration between Western medicine and the herbal medicine in Africa. And it was used very effectively. And that's something that can be expanded, that can be embarked on. And that can even be in a whole industry.
Correct.
And doctors, and there can be a collaboration there. So the film has many, many messages and many stories. And maybe someone here who's seen the film can expand on them as an observer. I'm part of the production, and maybe I may be biased, but maybe someone who's not part of the production team can probably speak about the virtues of the film. I think the film itself can be a very potent tool for providing solutions to the problem.
And if I may just add something really, really quickly, that these things were all of these topics were deliberately put in the film because we wanted discussions, to happen. And we see what is even currently happening in the media now about a certain herbal medicine. We want to go into all of that. But when we think of the film, we say, well, look, we have that. It's in our film.
It's the film, yeah.
It's in our film. And that's actually one of the scenes that I really, my favorite scenes in the film, where there's nowhere where we're putting down the herbal doctor, but we're elevating the herbal doctor to be at the same level as the Western doctor. And I think that is important. So all of these themes that are in the film, they are deliberately placed in the film because we are about changing mindsets. We're not just creating entertainment, but we are about edutainment. Or the plan is just like the Bob Marley song, Emancipate Yourselves from Mental Slavery, redemption song that we've been singing for so many years. We believe that the film Joseph is a product that can be, we will have it as a teaching tool for years to come. We've collaborated on it. All of our blood, sweat, and tears in it. The ancestors are cheering us on in it, and it is something that is created for Africa and its diaspora. And so we really believe in the film. And as I said, we were inspired by so many people, including Dr. Arikana, because we were just pulling on anything that we could get to keep the dream alive, in presenting this film to the world. And so we encourage people to see the film.
Thank you so much for that. I think this is a really good note for us to invite everyone else to participate and invite some more questions. Before we do, I would just like, again, a lot of questions are coming in about how people can access the film and also the ADDI platform. So I'll just leave it to you, Marcia and Dave, if you can just explain to people how they can access the movie, how they can watch the movie for now. And then Ambassador, I would just ask you as well, just to tell us a bit more about our ADDI.org and how people can get involved. And then we'll open the floor for questions.
Okay, the film is available on video on demand. It's on Vimeo. What you can do is post a link. We'll post a link in the chat before the webinar is over. There are 2 links that you can rent the film on stream the film via digital streaming, and you can do it that way. So we post those links to you in the chat.
Right, Vimeo and Solidify. Vimeo and Solidify.
Thank you very much. Ambassador, I would just like to ask you again, if you could please just share the details of ADDI. Many people are excited and ready and willing to join. Please give us some more details on how to do so.
Yes, just go to our ADDI, OUR, ADDI.org, which is our African Diaspora Development Institute.org, but just the acronym, our ADDI.org. And basically sign up. And we have a trip coming up. For example, Zambia, we are rescheduled for the 17th of October to the 27th. Somewhere in between, I'm going to throw in Sierra Leone and Liberia, and possibly Burundi. And so we'll keep you posted as to where we are going to be going. A lot of it, I'm being a bit careful because of COVID. We just want to see how COVID is going. And I want to make sure everybody's comfortable traveling. But if you go to the website and sign up and donate, and don't forget to get the book, Africa101.org. You got to reserve your copy. That's how we begin the journey to true healing and true waking up.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Okay, so we are going to be opening the floor to questions. Preferably questions, not so many comments now. And we're inviting people, if you would like to turn your camera on and engage directly with Dr. Arikana and David Marcia, then please do let us know. I'll start off by reading some of the comments from earlier and some of the questions. So we had, I have a question about the AU. Over the last 4 years, the power and focus of this organization is dwindling. Is this a systematic way to control them and stifle their growth? Okay. Even Europe and North America no longer have access to the AU's core. How can we avoid this whole AU colonization by China? This is one of the questions that has come in. I don't know if you have anything to add to that question, Ambassador.
AU is not colonized by China. I know that question is probably coming from the fact that the AU building itself was donated by China. You have to understand, an institution is as good as the people who run it. And so AU is our gift from our Pan-African fathers. And it is an institution that we must defend and protect at all costs. It is our only hope for truly getting a united Africa. So we cannot just put AU down just because we may not have a leader who is taking us where we need to be. Elections are coming up come February next year. And, the masses need to look at making their voices heard, let the heads of states know how you feel, because that's it, that is your institution. Your institution is going to be as good as you make it. I woke up to yesterday afternoon, there was a petition. This will make number 3 petition that diaspora just started on their own. And each one of them saying I should be the next chair of the African Union. I'm tired. The last 2, I begged those people, I said, please do me a favor, do not do this. But this last one that somebody sent to me yesterday, it has me and it has Professor Lumumba. And there's a petition going around that we should be the next chair and deputy chair of the African Union. So Professor Lumumba said, Ambassador, let it go. The people's voices must be heard. Participate in what is going on at the AU. It is your institution, and that institution is going to be as good as we make it. So I wouldn't say AU is hopeless. I can simply say, let's not allow ourselves to lose hope on our only hope for truly having a united Africa, an Africa that Kwame Nkrumah dreamt of with a single currency, an Africa with a single military, an Africa with a single monetary policy, with a single stock exchange. And so that is our only hope, and we need to continue to work with the African Union because it's going to be as good as we make it. We may not be pleased with what's going on right now, but let's not give up on the African Union. And African Union, I can tell you for a fact, it is not colonized by China. They donated the building, and of course there are some that talked about how it's all bugged and the Chinese are going to be eavesdropping on the deliberations going on in the building. Let me say this. For those of you who still think you need to put a bug in a wall to eavesdrop on someone, may I remind you that we have cell phones. They can read your messages from thousands of miles away. So the technology has advanced so much that nobody needs a bug in a wall to keep up with you if they wanted to listen in onto what you're doing. So the AU is our institution. It's going to be as good as we make it.
Thank you for that, Ambassador. Another question that has come in from Mr. Suraka Tapara is, why do we as a people seem to struggle more than anyone else with the question of unity? Is there a reason why it seems to be us? Is this something that everyone is struggling with? And it's just that we blame ourselves more than anyone else? What is the case? Both.
The case is because, like I said, they systematically did this to us. If you take the case of the slaves, they divided the light-skinned slaves and put them in the kitchen and made them feel that they're better than the darker-skinned field workers. At every level, they just pushed us down. I equate ourselves to a woman who is a battered woman, the battered woman syndrome. I share a story of one of my patients. She was telling me about her husband who was beating her up every night. Whenever he came home from work, he'll just beat her up. Sometimes he'll beat her up, and when he first comes in, and other times he'll beat her up later on in the night. And she was telling me, she said, when he comes home, I just wish he could just beat me up so we can get it over with. And I'm listening to this woman. She wants him to go ahead and just beat her up so we can get it over with until tomorrow. This woman has normalized an abnormal situation. They have sister, and that woman was not always like that. In her life, being beaten up by her husband every night is now her normal. It is her new normal, and she sees nothing wrong with it. And even as he's beating her up, she's busy covering her face because she doesn't want him to hit her where there could be a bruise. She's busy protecting the abuser. So none of her family members can ask her about the bruises. So she had no idea how far out she was from her norm. We need to realize that we are in the same position as well as Black people. We are so deep into this situation that we don't even realize that we are suffering to this extent. It's very sad, because how do you begin to turn this ship around? How do you tell somebody who is sick, but they don't know that they're sick? How do they go to the doctor? And so we must understand that ours has been a systematic process of brainwashing us. And we must realize that we are similar to a battered woman who has now normalized abuse. And to her, she sees nothing wrong with it. And that's where we are as Black people. We must understand our history. And sometimes we have to talk about it with simple, basic examples to say, why do you feel this way? Why do you think this way? Those of you from Africa, how often have you gone into a restaurant and you are the first one, but a white couple comes behind you and they want to sit the white couple before you? Or you are sitting in a restaurant and you have been seated for a while, the white couple that comes after you, the waiter, a Black person, your fellow African, they are quick to run and wait on the white couple. We see all these abuses by our own people because they look at us differently. We were trained to look at ourselves as inferior. And we must realize that we are not inferior to anybody. And it starts with conversation. We are going to keep talking until every Black child understands that they're just as good as anybody else. It's a simple example. I don't know how many of you saw the story, the little news item with Anderson Cooper on CNN, when they had Black dolls and white dolls. And they were showing these kids which doll was beautiful. The white girls and the Black girls, they all wanted the light-skinned dolls because they thought they were pretty. And the dark-skinned dolls, they thought they were ugly. So even the Black child does not see beauty in a doll that represents her. And that's how deep the disease is. And then if you're not fortunate enough to have gone through your life without somebody showing you the other side of being, you're going to go through life hating yourself, and yet you don't realize that you hate yourself, except somebody has to stop and say, why do you think somebody light-skinned is prettier than you because you're darker skinned? Ask them those direct questions. It's because you have been programmed to see things differently. I use an example of the angels and the devil. We didn't know anything about the color Black and the color white. When I was growing up in my village of Zimbabwe, before the British came in 1896, they introduced the angels who were white and the devil who was Black. And then they turn around and say, we are white people. White is associated with purity, everything desirable, and the angels, and now come to church. Let's worship a white Jesus Christ, let's worship the white angels. Then they take another race and called us Black. Then they taught us about the devil. And they said the devil is Black. Everything bad is Black. Everything associated with the devil is Black. Undesirable things are Black. You wear Black to go to a funeral. You wear white to go to a wedding and christening. And then you turn around and you say, you too are Black. but everything that you represent is undesirable. And the white kid, everything you represent is desirable. These two kids are growing in these two households. The white kid is being told, you're beautiful, you're desirable, everybody wants to be like you. And when they step outside the house, the world validates what they're being taught in the home. The black child is being told, you're black, regardless of how much we tell our children that you're black and beautiful in the home. When they step outside the door, the world is telling them otherwise, that everything that you represent is undesirable. Nobody has ever questioned, why do we go to church and worship a white Jesus Christ when actually I've never seen a human being who is as white as a sheet of paper. But we're simply told, don't worry about how I look, just call me white. And then white is all that. And in your case, I've never blended in with my black shoes and my black dress. But don't worry about how you look, but you're black and everything you represent is bad. You're like the devil. So how does one grow up with a sense of self-esteem when the whole world around you, they're showing you images and messages, and you go to church and you have never knelt in front of a black-looking Jesus. You have never knelt in front of a black-looking angel. How do you grow to like yourself when those images that you worship do not represent you? So you want to grow up to be that which you worship, that which has been put on a pedestal for you. We must pull back. Who has seen a white angel, if I may ask? Who has seen an angel? Who has seen a devil? And yet they came and they told us about them and they said, now worship this one and run away from this one. And we took it in, carte blanche, no questions asked, to this day. Are you getting my point?
Yeah.
Who has seen the devil? Please tell me. Who has seen the angels? Please tell me. Nobody. And yet we are told the devil is black and you are black. The angels are white and they are white. Now go to church and play and pray and kneel in front of the white Jesus and the white angels. I like to see us praying in front of a black Jesus and black angels. Images that represent who we are, the origin of humanity. And to you, black women, I say, without you, there would not be humanity as we know it. The first human being was given birth to by a black woman. Even Jesus Christ, we know Jesus Christ was black. Because when Herod wanted to kill all the black young boys who were newborns, because he knew a Messiah had been born, where did they tell Mary and Jesus to go hide? They told Mary and Jesus to go hide in Egypt. They sent them to Egypt because they knew Jesus Christ with his dark skin, he would blend nicely in Egypt. If he was white, they could have told them to go up north into Europe. But if they had run off into Europe, Jesus Christ would have stood out like a sore thumb. So they send Jesus Christ to Egypt because in Egypt is where he looked like. He would blend very easily. But they turned that image around and twisted it and made it white. And so I'm only making this point to say, these are some of the gross lies that we are told and we never question. Who is white really? Have you ever seen a person who looks like a white sheet of paper? And we have never questioned it. Are you with me?
Yes, Ambassador.
That is the mental slavery that we suffer from. And we need to undo all that. That is how deep our disease is. So let's understand first and foremost that we're sick from this disease. Not only are we in the doctor's office, not only are we in the hospital, in the general ward, we are in intensive care from this disease. But first, we must understand that we are sick. And until we understand we are sick, how do we get the healing that we desire? So it starts with education, education, and education.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I am just going to, I know Dave and Marcia, you might want to weigh in on this question, but because we are pushed for time, I'm going to allow someone else to ask another question and hopefully this will be something to weigh in on as well. So, brother, if you could just unmute yourself, I believe you have a question. Your hand was raised.
Yeah.
Please
Good.
And keep
My
it
name is
please.
My name is Chefundeme. From Ghana, and I do live in Beijing. My question is happening in Beijing. So I identified a place that Africans or diasporans don't have a place actually be because of racial discrimination. And now I've tried and secured a place for ourselves. And big wings from the diplomat caucus are going around telling my boss all sort of things. So me as an individual, I don't have the power, they have the power. So if we are trying to help the situation and these big wings are sabotaging us, how do we deal with it? How do we help our people to have a place of meeting, especially in Beijing? And the Africans in Beijing here are a lot, and we don't have at least a place to say that, okay, we are gathering. Now these big wings are fighting us, are fighting me. This is what is happening in Beijing. How do I go about it? Thank you.
Okay.
Let me start by saying, when it comes to having a place for where you all can gather and discuss your issues, this is not something that I hope you're not expecting the government of Ghana to help you in China. I hope you're not expecting the government of China to help you with that. Now, certain countries have certain concessions for their diaspora, but short of that, that goes back to what I was saying again. You as Africans can begin to pull your funds together until you're able to get whatever you need, if it's rental payments on a monthly basis, but you got to believe in yourselves to say, let's find a place and everybody pitch in. You put in your 100 RMB and make sure you pay your RMBs every month so we can have a place where we can meet. Let's not just look to somebody giving us money. That is that other colonial mentality. They trained us to just be begging, waiting for aid, waiting for somebody to give us something. We're very capable of putting all our monies together. I remember growing up with our mothers, they had these isusus where the women would come together, they give each other a little bit of money, and by the end of the month, one person can go on and invest in some whatever it is they want to do. And they kept doing it. This is how a lot of women that I grew up around empowered themselves by simply saying, alone, I may not have anything to start anything, but together I can be somebody. And I'm sure most of you on this platform, you know your family members who are involved, and it's still being done even to this day. So my son, to you, I say, think about making a personal commitment to say, do we want to buy this building? Do we want to rent it? But we will have a place where we congregate. If you're waiting for Ghana to send you money, forget it. If you're waiting for China to give you money, I doubt it very much. But you all collectively, you can put your monies aside and get yourself a place where you can meet.
Thank you very much for that, Ambassador. Marcia and Dave, is there anything to add to that? If not, we can go to the next question.
I just, thank you, Renaka. I wanted to clarify whether, is the gentleman asking about getting a place to rent, or that he was sabotaged by African, by other Africans from the place that you already have?
Yeah, I think I can go back to him to
I'm being sabotaged by big wings.
In
the African community.
Yes.
So you already have a place, but you're being sabotaged.
I already have a place. Yes, with the big wings. Me, I don't have power. I don't have anything, but I only have my mind to go. So how do I deal with this situation? Because they are in power and I'm just an ordinary being. I can be carried anytime. So how do I deal with this situation? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. What are these big wings? Define them.
The big wings are the diplomats from most of the African countries and businessmen here. I'm being sabotaged.
The
Yeah,
African businessmen?
Yes, and my boss is quite generous. Then he gives me that, okay, be careful of just these people, these people, these people. He's a Chinese. Be careful of these people. They don't want your good. That's what but how do we get respected when we see a problem, we address it, then our people go back to sabotage us. Yeah.
I'm not sure how a diplomat could really get involved in a private matter pertaining to you owning or renting a building. That diplomat will be completely out of line. They have nothing to do with that. That's a completely private matter that does not fall within their jurisdiction. So that would be an individual who's just taking matters in their own hands. Now, I don't also know why any successful African in China would get in the way of you trying to get a building, unless if you're saying they're not helping you. Because again, I go back to whom much is given, much is expected. So I quite agree with you that if there are some able African businessmen who could actually help other young people come together, then they are in the wrong. And they too are suffering from this disease I'm talking about. They should see the need to say, I have my young brother who is struggling and trying to do a good thing. I have the means, let me pull him up. So yes, the spirit of Ujamaa must exist among us, but again, sadly, those of us who feel that we have made it, we want to take off the ladder so nobody else can climb, can use the same ladder to climb. That one is where the real sad story is. If they are Africans who should help you, my son, and they are refusing, even though they can. Diplomats, I don't understand why any diplomat would want to get involved in a private matter like that. But your brothers and sisters who are doing well in China, they have a responsibility. Give me a call. I will tell them. I will call them myself to say, this is the situation. What is going on? Can you help our children? Sometimes if we have to pick up the phone and talk to them, we'll be more than happy to do so, because this is about us. If they are able, they should help you, my son. That would be very sad if there are people who can help you and they're refusing to help you.
Thank you very much. We're going to have to move on very swiftly and just say that we have 5 minutes left now for the question and answer. So if everyone can just make their points very, very briefly so that we can get the answers from our esteemed guests. I will just spotlight the next person who has a question.
Hello.
Hello.
Excellency, I greet you this morning, and I'm very glad you raised this point about religion. And actually, my name is Sadiq Donko from Ghana, and I'm studying materials science and engineering in Ohio University. I would like to quote Jomo Kenyatta. He said, "When the white man came in, he had the Bible and we had the lands. Now we are holding the Bible and he's having the lands." The only thing preventing the Africans from rising up and doing well by their people is religion. And I can confidently say in Africa, we're having a lot of churches, mosques, done factories. Her Excellency, what's the way forward if this is a big institution that contributes immensely to mental slavery? So what's the solution forward?
Well, let me tell you, the issue of religion in Africa is a really tough one. It's something that has to be managed. At the end of the day, everybody's looking at economic development, and people end up going into religion. In some cases, it is the only hope that they have left. And then while they're there are some that are now exploiting them as well. So the issue of religion in Africa, keep in mind, we are very spiritual people. I can speak of my country of Zimbabwe. We had our own gods before the British came and taught us about Christianity. We knew that we needed intermediaries to access and speak to God. And so we have our spirit mediums who were our intermediaries, but we communicated with God. We prayed viciously when we needed something on a daily basis before starting a journey. We prayed to our God through the spirit mediums. And then suddenly others came, the British came and told us that your gods are not good. Your spirit mediums are not good. Let's teach you about our God. So you're quite right. It has been a process of systematically moving us away. Not only did they move us away from our own cultures, we are now actually just lost because we are busy trying to fit in into somebody else's culture. We are busy trying to fit in somebody else's religion. We've abandoned our own religion, our own culture. It's really, slowly you're beginning to see why our circumstances as Black people are as bad as they are, because they really worked on us from a very fundamental level. And so the undoing of the damage must also start from the fundamental level. That's education. We are not saying do not go to church, but don't be spoon-fed lies. Be practical, talk to your pastor. Why do we have a white Jesus in our church? You know, why are we seeing angels as being white? Why is the devil black? Let's ask questions, because these are all subliminal messages that are being passed on to us, not only us as adults, but even our children. Those are the visuals they grow up seeing. So all that needs to be addressed from a very realistic point of view. And let's begin to tell each other, particularly our children, the truth. So yes, religion is, while we need religion, it's a place where we can find hope and solace in difficult times. I have nothing against religion. I'm simply saying religion has been hijacked. It's being abused. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in God. But let's speak about Jesus Christ from the point of truth, for who he was, not what they want him to be. We believe in Jesus Christ. We believe in Christianity. But let's also speak truth about that religion. Religion has been hijacked by those who choose to abuse religion to their own benefit. So it is a serious problem in Africa, sadly. But nonetheless, it's something that has to be handled very tactfully, because if you don't, as a president, you won't win elections if you go against the Christians, because also they're getting their backing from outside. And that just makes the situation even worse. So it is a difficult situation. It just simply needs to be understood from a global, holistic point of view in order to begin to change the minds of men.
Okay.
Doctor, can I ask my kind of make like a comment? I really I think this moment.
Yourself, I'm not sure who's speaking. Can you please introduce yourself?
Oh, this is Gideon Assange. I'm from Amazonia. I'm speaking from Missouri.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Well, doctor, please excuse me. Pardon me to use our African way to address you. Mami. You know that word, mami? It means all. I don't want to call you your excellency. I don't want to call you all that. I want to give you the highest respect that we can give our mothers.
Thank you.
I have been trying to do something in the regard of, let me say, in the direction that you are doing, and I'm working with a few guys writing a document to see how we can do a grassroots movement of Africans in the diaspora to come together such a way that we can all see how we can help our brothers and sisters in the continent, Africa. It is a difficult thing to talk to some of our brothers out here, but my own way of looking at it is I'm hoping that all of us can sit. For example, you have in America, we've done the check. you have about 2.5 million Africans in America. We thought that if all of us can come together, or if even half of us can put, say, $10 a month, each 18 and above, $10 a month. If you put $10 a month for 1 million of us in one organization, that's a lot of money for 1 million Africans in America. We talk about those who are in Europe, we have about 8 to 9 million. That's what the books say. That's what Google will tell you. But I'm very sure we have more than that. We have the same team out there. It does the same. We have grassroots, every country, every African state out here in Africa, in America, in Europe, all of us.
Brother, really sorry to cut you off there, but can you get to the question part just so that because we have
I'm really not getting the question. I'm just suggesting, because I've been trying to get to Dr. Arikana, but it's very difficult to get to her.
Okay.
But anyway, let me just end. I'm thinking we have already done something like that, and we've created a social media platform called Omujami. Omujami, we use the word Omujami because it's a Swahili word. We combine the word Umoja and Jami. That means United Community. We're already working on something like that, and it'll be a pleasure if we'll get to talk to you on a private basis. This is a public forum that we cannot really get more insight from you or help and directive, so we can build Africa in the diaspora in a much better way for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What we're just going to do now is, for the last few comments, we're just going to take them all together, and then all of our speakers can kind of pick and choose which ones they want to answer. So if you can the last few people who have their hands up, I'm just going to go on you right now. Elijah, can you please keep it very, very brief, and we'll collect them all together, and then the ambassador and Dave and Marcia will be able to answer all together.
Thank you very much, Runako. Thank you, Dr. Arikana, Dave and Marcia. We really appreciate the time we've had together. And the question I want to ask is connected to the aspect of the way forward. And before I just go to that, I want to thank Dr. Arikana for the description about how Jesus had been taken to Egypt. And when she was describing that and things around it, my son quickly asked, or exclaimed, "Daddy, that's bad." Because he was listening in. And the aspect I want to mention directly is we have already been bonding up. We have begun gathering monies together, putting into e-commerce and running some projects that are pointed at empowering SMEs in several rural areas. But some of the challenges and the pushbacks we're getting is that there's always coming up one form of government pushback or the other. And someone amongst us has suggested that what we may do to avoid the pushbacks would be that we should be willing to allow governments take the glory for whatever we're doing, or take credit for whatever we're doing. That by doing that, we may most likely avoid their pushbacks. Dr. Arikana, Dave, and Marcia, I want to get your perspective. What do you think about we fund our projects, we do everything, but we just disappear? What do you think about that? We know that it may not be easy for several persons. We've been working towards convincing people in our circles, because we have the the Organization of African Academic Doctors here in China that holds together all PhD students and PhD holders, postdoctoral studies, professors, researchers in different fields around here in China, and several of them who are back home. Because we believe that the intellectuals have a great responsibility to build a track for African development.
Okay.
And definitely we'll be very excited to, yes, so what do you think can be done?
Yes.
Or what's your perspective?
Okay, so we're going to take all of the questions at once so that we can wrap up the question and answer and move on to Ambassador Francois Jackman, who will do the closing words. So I will just move on to the next question. I've written them all down, so I will, summarize and send out to the ambassador and Marcia and Dave afterwards. So the next person who had a question, just spotlighting. Okay. Hello.
Hello. Yeah,
Yes.
my name is Richard. My name is Richard. I'm from Ghana. Thank you so much, Dr. Arikana, for inspiring us so much. God bless you. My question is, I've been active on the US stock trade market for about 3 years, and I realized that I have seen so many small companies with very little market capitalization of less than $1 million floating their shares on the stock market, where young people are able to trade out actively to make money out of it. So my question is, why is it that most companies in Africa don't enlist their shares or float their shares on the stock market in Africa, where young people or most businessmen can actively buy shares from these companies so that we can be able to make money from our companies more than the hedge fund managers from abroad or from Europe come actively invest in our companies? Why don't we just enlist these companies in the stock market in Africa and make it accessible to everybody, where a young guy can buy shares of maybe $200 and wait for a year and make some profit out of it? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for keeping it brief. I've taken a note of your question. The next person, Sabelo, would you like to speak?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good day to everyone. Sabelo is my name. I'm from the School of African Awareness. My issue pertains to the concept of African unity. To what extent can we really be talking about African unity given the scenario, especially looking at the African Union as a potential driver for such unity, where within the African Union itself are the Arab-oriented countries which are perpetuating the Arabization of the continent and perpetuating the colonialization of the continent by the Arabs. And secondly, this idea of 2.5 million Africans in the US, the reason why I have problems with it is that it seeks to differentiate the global African nation. From where I stand, you can't talk about Africans and leave out the Africans who were born in the US by virtue of being descendants of enslaved Africans. So when you talk Africans in the US or in the diaspora in general, you have to accommodate literally everyone as an African who basically has their ancestry deriving from the continent. Thank you very much.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that question. Next, Ria. 1 second.
My dear daughter, I may have to leave, unfortunately.
Very sorry about that.
Yes. Can I be excused? It's been 2.5 hours. I really gotta go, almost 3 hours.
Yes, it has been a very long session, unfortunately.
Yes.
Yes, I think I'm very grateful to have had you on this session, Ambassador. And sorry if it has run on so long. It's clearly there's a thirst for your knowledge, and hopefully this is the first of many conversations.
Thank you so much.
We're very grateful to have had you, and we will keep this dialogue open.
Thank
Dave,
you so much. Keep up the good work.
Yes, thank you so
Thank
much.
you very
A
much.
pleasure meeting you. Thank you so very much.
Same here. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes,
Okay. I mean, with that being said, I think we can just read some of the questions that have happened already. And Dave and Marcia, if you are able and willing to answer these questions and weigh in on them, then please do. Ria, if you do have something to say, then please do share. And I know that there was one more question that is particularly aimed at you, Dave and Marcia as well. So.
Yeah. It's okay. I wanted to ask her directly. It's okay.
No problem. I'm sure there will be other opportunities. So
yeah, exactly.
Yes. Okay. So
it was over time anyway, so I could understand. It's okay.
Yeah, we definitely have to run over. So I'll just ask a question aimed at you, Dave and Marcia. That's from Delisa McPherson, and she has asked, what are your next projects and how can we follow you on social media?
Yes, well, she can look for Joseph, Joseph the movie. We're on Facebook and on Instagram. And we have our website, stepbystepfilms.com, stepbystepfilms.com with an S, stepbystepfilms.com, and you'll be able to see all of our films there and how you can rent them, etc. We've also put in the chat here for everyone where they can access where they could actually rent the film Joseph. Apart from where they can rent Joseph. So you'll be able to see that information there. You can look for Solidify. That's a platform where it is being rented on, and also on Vimeo. Well, at present, we were so busy promoting the film, promoting Joseph. We had such a wonderful opportunity of AMC saying, they would have they had put it in a couple of their cinemas in the US and was doing very well, but with COVID, that has stopped everything. So hence we're doing streaming and looking for different deals for online distribution. That's what we're working on right now. And there's so many ideas for films that we have actually. I'm very keen looking stuff with the herbal medicine. Thank you, Dave. Herbal medicine. Very, very keen on doing something there. So, but the idea though, for the person who asked the question, we are continuing to we're looking for projects in Africa where this is something that it's very, very important to us, what we're doing. As I said earlier, it's more than just entertainment, but it's edutainment, and it's connecting, using the arts to really connect us for cultural purposes and also for economic purposes. So we're continuing to look for projects in Africa to collaborate on, because it is what we believe. That's what we've been talking about, and it's what we believe. So listen out for us. We will always find stuff from us on our social media pages on the website, of exactly what is happening as well. We also have a step-by-step Facebook account, and I am Marcia Weeks on Facebook, Dave Weeks. You can look for us as well and send a friend request to us. But we're definitely invested in the region, in the African region.
Thank you very much. Can you mute yourself, please?
Projects.
Can you just mute yourself, please? Okay, so
you can mute everybody. You can mute everybody, Runako.
Yeah. So he's muted now. Okay, so because we have run so far over, I think it was a really valuable discussion. I think it was necessary. However, we really want to just thank everyone for tuning in, especially our guests. It has been phenomenal, and this is only the beginning. It's not the beginning. We are inheriting a tradition. But it is a continuation, and I would like everyone to stay around because we're going to try and do a picture at the end. Stay tuned. I think Miata can lead that, and we are also blessed and lucky to have closing remarks by the ambassador of Barbados to China, His Excellency Francois Jackman. I think you are ready now. I will just spotlight. Thank you for bearing with us, Ambassador.
Well, thank you for inviting me to participate in what has been an absolutely fascinating discussion. And I really want to start off by congratulating the discussants, the participants, the questioners, the commentators, and of course, the filmmakers whose remarkable film, Joseph, serves as a touchstone for this discussion. And I mean, my first message, if I may, to everyone who hasn't had the chance, as I have, to see the film, is to see the film, because it really encapsulates in a beautiful, moving, and really touching way many of the questions and some of the answers that have been highlighted in today's discussions, and really illustrates where art and culture have a role to play in creating both internal and external images of the diaspora, of the African people, the Caribbean people, in a way which can engage ourselves and engage our partners in a very direct, emotional, and also very sophisticated way. So if I may say, please, to all of those who haven't yet seen it, find a way to see the film. It really is a great film. I'd also like, if I may, take this opportunity to say a couple of words about three people whom I am aware of who have had a special role to play in this event, and whose participation really demonstrates, I think, from a Barbadian, from a Caribbean perspective, the commitment that we have to the ideas that were discussed today. And those three people are Margaret Harris, who I know has been in the background working to make an event like this possible and to follow up on it. Maxine McLean, my former boss, who, as I learned today, literally put her money where her mouth was, and who, in her years as Minister of Foreign Affairs, and therefore my boss, was known for doing so metaphorically. And to John King, who is the Minister of Culture of Barbados today, and his presence shows the continuity of our attachment to these kinds of initiatives and these kinds of ideas. You have asked me to make some closing remarks, and I'll be brief because it's impossible to attempt to summarize a discussion that's so rich, but I'll just touch on two, I think, of the main elements of the discussion. And those are agency and unity. And the theme of today's event, neither East nor West, but forward, really encapsulate these two critical ideas. And the film Joseph is an astonishing expression of those themes, of the agency which the makers of the film themselves demonstrated by bringing an idea into the complex reality that is a modern film, finding the funds, finding the partners, making the idea come alive. There's no better example of successful agency than producing a film coming out of the Caribbean, treating global themes like this. I also want to be a little positive about what, as an African diasporic community, we have already been able to achieve and where we are achieving new things. And I'm going to give a couple of brief, specific examples. One striking example is the growth in diplomatic network between Africa and the Caribbean. Africa is now the continent in the world where the greatest number of new diplomatic missions are being opened. And they're being opened not just by European and North American countries. They're being opened by countries from other parts of the diaspora, including the Caribbean. Just last year, in the case of Barbados that I know well, the President of Kenya visited Barbados and the Prime Minister of Barbados visited Kenya. They agreed that they would establish deeper reciprocal relations because they understand the importance, the commercial importance, the economic importance, the cultural importance, the psychic importance of developing these links. So these kinds of new and evolving channels of communication and interchange are developing, are growing, and are a source for, I think, for all of us in the community, a source of really great hope. The second thing I'd also like to say is that by and large, and Maxine McLean will have experienced this on an almost daily basis in her time in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, by and large, in the diplomatic sphere, the interests of African countries and Caribbean countries, the interests of the countries representing the African diaspora as a whole, they find a natural rhythm, a natural unity. So to take a big subject that we've been concerned about and that endangers us all, climate change, the interests of our African brothers and sisters are the same as the interests of the small island states and low-lying coastal states of the Caribbean. There's a natural alliance there. And out of that natural alliance, we've been able to have tremendous success. We've been able to bend international rules and international institutions to our needs, so that although, for example, the Paris Accord on climate change is not everything we would wish to be, it represents something that is a real step forward in addressing a global issue that is of existential concern to the community. Although it is not all we would wish it to be, we are now seeing the International Monetary Fund and international financial institutions start to take into account some of the concerns that the countries of the African diaspora have been expressing for a long time. And of course, we can achieve these goals and more besides only if we do this together. Clearly, Barbados cannot do it on its own. Clearly, Ghana cannot do it on its own. But when we come together to express these similar converging views, our partners, including our partners over here in China, will sit up and pay attention. So although there is still a long way to go and many new avenues to explore, I think we should take some heart from the fact that there are existing platforms that we have been working for some time to create, upon which we can build even further and go together even farther. So in closing, let me just thank you again for having made possible this fascinating discussion, and say that if there's anything, and I'm sure that the Minister of Culture, Minister King, would feel the same way, if there's anything that the authorities in Barbados can do to keep events like this going, to explore further the channels that these discussions open up, I'm sure that we will do everything that we can to make that possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Ambassador. And that essentially brings us to the end of our discussion today. Just ever grateful for everyone taking the time out to tune in. We'd like to try and take a little picture. So if everyone who has turned off their cameras could just turn them back on briefly, it'll take a second, and we'll just, yeah, we can see everyone already. While people are still turning on their cameras, I'd just like to announce as well that coming up in the month of June is Kente and Silk's Africa Week. Miata might be able to say more about this, but again, in the interest of just unity and really supporting initiatives within the community, please, everyone else, feel free to drop their own initiatives as well. But Kente and Silk's Africa Week is coming up. They have started a pitch competition for African organizations and businesses across the whole of China. It's just an amazing opportunity for people who are entrepreneuring and really trying to get started. So please do check that out. The link is down below. And again, that's in the spirit of unity. You know, this isn't my initiative, so I have no reason to call it out, but it's about unity and showing that we stand with each other. We're not about one particular organization, we're about all of us. So yes, with that being said, we can move on to the picture. Miata, how does that actually work? How do we do that? You're muted.
Thanks, Renato. I'm just trying to, but people, not everyone's put their videos on, which is fine. So I've already taken a couple of screenshots, and unfortunately most people are not in the picture, but we can only do our best and respect if people don't want to be seen. But just to echo what Renato said, so grateful for everyone to contribute today. This is only the beginning, and hopefully we'll have more opportunities to and more importantly, unite. We always have our differences. I don't agree with everything that was said, but that we should find ways to unite and move forward together. Using creativity, using art, using all our gifted talent in a way that is productive.
Yes, thank you again. So I will just play the theme tune to Joseph the movie because I think it really sums up everything that we've spoken about. We will leave this open for a little while. If anyone has things that they want to drop and promote in the comment section, then please do so. So we'll just leave it open for that to happen. Call it virtual networking, I guess. And once again, thank you to our special guests and speakers today. It's been phenomenal. Dave and Marcia Weeks, we are honored to have you, Ambassador, well, she's not with us right now, but Ambassador Arikana, it has been amazing. And finally to Ambassador Francois Jackson, we are ever grateful. So yes, I'm going to try and find the song right now. But yeah, please do feel free to promote anything.
And we just want to say thank you to Kente and Silk and to Black Livity for this opportunity. This has been great. And before we met you, we didn't even know there were Africans in China. Really sorry about that, but that's the truth. And so it was so great to have met you and to see so many tonight and hear their voices and just to know you are in our thoughts. And as Marcus Garvey says, Africa for Africans at home and abroad.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Oh.
Our time?
Your time.
Okay, I'm listening.
Africa, it is your time to shine.
Okay.
Africa, it's your time.
What a revelation.
Your time.
Wow.
Africa, it is your time to
yes.
rise. God's got a fire.
Yes, Africa is rising. God bless Africa.
Africa, it's your
The
time.
beauty,
Your time.
the gold, the tanzanite, the glory of diamonds, the plains of savannah, the beautiful animals, the beautiful color, the color of our skin, the darkness of beauty and love. We are standing and rising for the glory of Jesus Christ.
Today's celebration is a historic day in our culture. A descendant of our forefathers has traced his way back all the way from Akumpo, Maroon Town in Jamaica. Because of him, many more will find their way home. Not even the oceans or geographical borders will hinder our people from finding their way home.
We really are at a point of do or die. If we do not come together this time for the sheer survival of us, then let's do it for our children, our grandchildren, and generations to come. I'm looking forward to so working with you. This is what I've come up with. This is an answer to your call. For those who thought I was just going to disappear, I'm sorry, I'm not going anywhere. The diaspora must go home. The diaspora are the missing ingredient for us to be able to build a sustainable Africa. Besides, our heads of states have spoken loud and clear. The children of Africa in the diaspora must come home. I have no doubt in my mind that we are all going to come together and say, divisions no more. The legacy of slavery, no more. The legacy of colonization, no more. No more shall we continue to be divided. No more shall we continue to have self-hate. This is our time. We're going to learn from other diaspora groups in this country, and we will stick together like super glue, because we, the beautiful, the intelligent, the sophisticated, highly adaptable, and totally indestructible children of one mother Africa, we are going to join hands and go home. We are answering the call from our African heads of states. Let's do it.